Too tired to kill anybody. Yeah, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive presented by Yahoo Fantasy Sports. I'm Dave Loughran at Laffy_D, joined by Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS. And dude, it's one of those days drinking coffee. Just poured one 5 p.m. on a Friday on the East Coast.
Yeah, same for me. You and I both, I think at the same time, got up and walked away 5 minutes before the show started to get coffee. So, yeah, shitty weather today.
It is. Yeah, we had this. We had a great intro that you guys missed, by the way. Totally gone. We're going to try and replicate it. It's just not going to work, though. So, combination of too tired and feeling like an idiot saying the same exact thing I just said to you.
All I could think about was like if somehow like the audio had played from before, how stupid we were sounding.
Right. That would have been awful. But anyway, we're happy to have you guys with us. As always, hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. If you're just jumping in the room, as much of you are because we just started the show, hit that thumbs up. Always going to be free content no matter what. We'll never change it, but it helps us. You know this. Combat the YouTube overlords, the algorithm, and subscribe to the channel. Help get us to 70,000. So what's going on, man?
Not much. You know, working on hockey lineups, my new tradition during the deeper dive show. But
it's good. It's phenomenal that we pay you for
that. Yeah, you know, really good use of my time. But no, I don't know, just it's pouring. It looked like it was clearing up. I was excited. I was like, cool, maybe I can make lineups, you know, go out for a little bit, pulled the curtains, and it just started pouring again. So I guess it's the rain's not going anywhere. It's
tough. I got these blackout shades, and when I'm working, I'll pull them up, get a little sun, but I pulled them up today, and I think it was darker. I think it was darker with the blackout shades up. So yeah, lose there. But what's going on, everyone? We got yeah. Oh, apparently my mic was hot. No, Rich C, when I said I'm too tired to kill anybody, what I meant was obviously tongue in cheek. Tyler, the restream didn't set, the stream didn't go live, and he had said a million times, like, restream bugged. He said it enough. And he's like, yeah, I thought you were going to kill me. I would never. Tyler's a great guy and a good producer. But anyway, we dive into it. We got 7 games to talk about today for Friday night. We're locking at 7. We'll turn it over to Eric and Greg after this for Live Before Lock. Before we dive into it, though, first question is always, what type of slate is this in terms of stars and scrubs? Are we looking at good value? And how many of these questionable players do you think sit? Because there's a couple noteworthy names, particularly at the center position, where you get such good value for backups that if they do happen to sit out, we could have some really good low-end plays.
Yeah, this, I think, is one of the first slates of the year where we've had that the entire way you're building, I think, could just completely change depending on how news breaks. Obviously, you have LeBron as a game time decision. We know that, you know, has a big impact. But Bam Adebayo went from probable earlier today to questionable. If he's out, it opens up a basically minimum salary Dwayne Dedmon as, you know, as close to a must play as you're going to find in DFS, basically. You have Jokic questionable. I'm assuming he plays, but if he doesn't, you're getting a ton of value on Denver because not only do people need to take his minutes, but the assist percentage for some guys would go up. The usage rate for a bunch of guys goes up. So it would just turn into, you know, Denver going from a team where like typically you don't really care about anybody except Jokic to a team where you're just jamming them in. So Adebayo and Jokic, both huge pieces. LeBron, a big piece. We'll probably have the Bam news maybe during the show, hopefully during the show, but you know, sooner than later because that game does start at 7:30. But the Jokic game at 10, the LeBron game at 10:30, I would plan on being around my computer to swap stuff around tonight.
Yeah, no question. Lance Burton said someone said Dedmon is trash. Yeah, that's not true. I mean, you get Dedmon minutes at minimum salary and you're not playing him, you're probably making a considerable mistake. Even if he doesn't play a ton of minutes, Adam, like if he gets 24 minutes from Dedmon, you're going to want him at 3,500.
Yeah, he's a productive fantasy player. He's the Heat center position is pretty empty behind him. I mean, I assume PJ Tucker would play some, but yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much to debate. If Dwayne Dedmon were to start in place of Bam, he's just like the easiest value play on the slate.
And we'll get to that game. Kainoa's dad says we're drinking straight black, right, boys? I never asked you, how do you drink coffee?
Black, usually.
Yeah, me too. My wife got me drinking black. She always drinks black coffee. And I thought, you know what, maybe I should get rid of the sugar and all that stuff. Sometimes I feel like if you put sugar in coffee, you feel worse after you drink it. So
yeah, and it's, I mean, the taste is whatever. Like once you drink it a couple times, you don't really care.
Are you a Keurig guy?
I have an espresso machine that DraftKings sent me, so I use that.
All right, nice. I use a Keurig. Pretty simple stuff, but it always tells you need water when it's halfway filled with water. It's the dumbest thing ever. Anyway, congrats on the 100K, man.
Thanks.
Is it true you had some like issues even uploading your lineups that night and banked 100K?
Yes. Yeah, it is. I didn't have my lineups done by 7, so I just didn't play anybody from the 7 p.m. games. Still didn't get them done by 7:30, and I had Anunoby and Devontae Graham in my cash lineup, so they locked, and so I just had them in every single tournament lineup, and then I just crunched around them for everything else.
Wait, you had 100%?
Yeah.
On 150?
Yeah, on 150, yeah.
That's incredible.
And I
What'd
even
they
had,
finish with?
What'd you say?
What'd they finish with?
Both like 8x. Graham got 40 and
That's crazy.
OG got like 47. I even had Devontae Graham in the guard spot instead of the point guard spot because I thought him and Westbrook's game started at the same time. So when I was just like rushing, I just threw it together with Westbrook at point guard and Graham at guard. And then Graham locked first. So I couldn't even like.
Oh, that's amazing. We got to do that more often.
Yeah, no.
That's awesome.
When Josh asked me, because I played the night slate that day too. Josh is like, did you get your lineups in for the night slate correctly? I said, yeah. He goes, how'd you do? I'm like, lost 65%. Like, when I actually did what I wanted to.
I don't think you care about me saying this on stream, but I think everybody watching this will appreciate it before we get into Orlando, Toronto. That you said someone reached out about doing like a, dissecting lineups and everything for you after you won the 100K, and you say a good fucking luck trying to figure these lineups out.
Yeah, there's like a couple of like the Twitter accounts that, like they go through and try and like analyze what people did the night before. It's like, man, I'm going to screw up a lot what a lot of people think you should be doing in tournaments if they're looking at that.
Especially the people that see the winning lineup and assume that they are supposed to replicate that. Right, and they're like, okay, so I need to play 100% of 2 players every night.
The strategy is just jam in 2 guys, then completely fade the early games and have all the late guys to come in.
Right. Can't lose situation. Congrats, man. That's awesome. Orlando, and I know as like a higher stakes GPP player like yourself, the swings can be vicious at times. So,
oh, for sure. Yeah. It's, nice to, I said it earlier, said it like yesterday. It's not so much about like I'm going to go buy something crazy. It's just nice to have, more DFS runway.
For sure. Orlando, Toronto, let's make this happen. Let's get to 200 likes, por favor. I'll just thank you in advance because I know we're going to smash that. Orlando +8 against Toronto, 206 total. Among all the totals on this slate, Adam, it is the lowest one that we've got to work with. It doesn't mean you can't find some decent opportunities here, though. And this is one of the few games where you don't really have any notable injuries that we're waiting on. I guess Orlando we can start with, because while they haven't been a good team, they haven't been overpriced, and they've actually had some relatively productive guys. I mean, Wendell Carter Jr. Has had some solid games. None of these guys with like monster ceiling games outside of that one from Cole Anthony where he came close to that triple-double. But like him, Carter, Mo Bamba, are they in play for you tonight at their current salaries?
Yeah, and with the way that the slate sets up right now, like I'm assuming for now that Bam, Jokic, LeBron all play. Given that assumption, you're missing out on a lot of value, and so it's going to make these mid-range guys look better. But for as bad a team as Orlando is, there is some DFS value here. Cole Anthony has gotten off to a really good start this year from a rebounding standpoint. He's done really well, particularly for a guard, and so that's valuable. The guy that I really, really like, though, and this is DraftKings or FanDuel, he's 5,100 on DraftKings, 4,600 on FanDuel. I really like Jalen Suggs here. He has gotten off to a really, really poor start this year from a shooting standpoint. He has about a 40% true shooting percentage. We don't have any sort of baseline like previous NBA numbers, obviously, to look back for him since he's a rookie, but I feel pretty comfortable saying he ends up with a true shooting percentage better than 40% by the end of the year. But he leads the team with a 25.6% usage rate. He's second with an 18.2% assist percentage behind Cole Anthony. So he's been very, very involved in terms of opportunities when he's on the floor. He's averaging about 30 minutes per game this year, but in Orlando's last game, they cut Robin Lopez out of the rotation. They cut RJ Hampton's minutes. So it seems like they could be tightening the rotation a bit too. And Suggs played 36 minutes there. So potentially you're getting even a few more minutes than his season average. And I think he's just basically, he's priced to where he has produced so far. He's produced about 0.75 DraftKings points per minute. But I think based on his rates, he's likely to start producing at a much higher level. So I like him a lot. I like Cole Anthony. Bamba and Carter are both fine. I will say that I'm a little concerned about Bamba because last year he was a really, really productive, like 1.2 drafting point per minute player. This year he's closer to a fantasy point per minute. On the one hand, it's easy to kind of write that off and say it's only been a few games. But on the other hand, Wendell Carter Jr. has the higher rebounding percentage out of the two. He's getting more rebound chances. So I do think that he's at least to this point cutting into Bamba a little bit. So Bamba still gives you a high ceiling, but I think Wendell Carter actually at $700 less on DraftKings is where I would prefer to go if I'm only going to one of them.
How many minutes are you giving to Wendell Carter Jr. tonight?
I have 31 for Bamba, 29 for Carter.
Okay. Yeah. We had a super chat. And by the way, Mo Bamba's block rate is just way down from where it was. This guy has an almost 8% career block rate, which is insane. And that's actually in 3 seasons running up until this. So you might see that start to improve a little bit. If his stock numbers come up, you'll feel decent there. Kendall Young with the super chat. If you're doing 100 lineups, how much exposure should you have to each player? Well, Adam, I think it's par for the course now to say at least 2 players need to be 100%.
Yeah, obviously. But no, I mean, it's obviously slate dependent. It depends on a lot of things. There's no like clear cut answer to that. For example, last night I intentionally had 100% Montrezl Harrell. Most slates, I'm not going to have 100% of anybody. But if you have like just a very obvious value that opens up where nobody around him is comparable, a lot of times he's going to end up in close to 100% of your lineups. A lot of it it really, I guess from like a macro standpoint, it comes down to like how deep price tiers are. Like if you're on a slate where you have Nikola Jokic and no other pay up options, you're going to get a lot of exposure to Nikola Jokic. If you're on a slate where you have Jokic, Doncic, Curry, Giannis, all playing, you're going to get less to Jokic and, because you're spreading it out to those guys. So there's no, hard and fast rule that you should be using.
All right. So anybody else for Orlando?
I think that's about it. I mean, Franz Wagner's playing a lot of minutes as well. Terrence Ross got a lot of minutes off the bench last game. He seemed to benefit from that tighter rotation. So I think it's kind of it's one of those teams where you could certainly make a case for 6 different guys from Bamba, Anthony, Carter, Wagner, Suggs, and Ross. But as far as priorities for me go, I think Jalen Suggs is my number 1 guy. Cole Anthony would be second. And then the front court guys in Carter and Bamba.
What about on the other side of this one? You've got really all 5 starters pulling some ownership, at least now on DraftKings, according to our ownership projections. We should get an update on them shortly, any minute now. But I mean, from Anunoby to Gary Trent to Van Vliet to Scotty Barnes to Precious Achiuwa, all of these guys pulling 14+% right now. Again, like I said, it's a low total game, but this isn't exactly a dominant Orlando team either.
No, they have the worst defensive rating in basketball so far this year, allowing 115.9 points per 48 minutes.
Solid.
So yeah, not very good. You're getting a Toronto team where they're all just priced pretty reasonably. Like it's, a good matchup against Orlando. Van Vliet's averaging 38 minutes per game this season. His usage rate's a little bit lower than I think we expected it to be coming into the season, but it's still 23.6%. His assist percentage is extremely high, and 38 minutes is 38 minutes. So he's still going to look like a good option. Anunoby's usage rate is much higher this year than last year. You've seen that go up with Lowry and Siakam both either traded or not on the or sidelined. He's at 26% for the year, leading the team. He's also contributing a bit in the way of assists and rebounds. Scotty Barnes is doing a little bit of everything and also averaging about 35 minutes per game, 23% usage rate. He's second on the team in rebound chances. He's second on the team in assist percentage. Precious Achiuwa is typically playing 27 to 28 minutes when he's not in foul trouble. He's about a fantasy point per minute guy. And then Gary Trent, I think, is like the least appealing of the starters, but he's still only 5K and likely to play 34, 35 minutes. So this is another team where I think they just look really, really good. Van Vliet, Anunoby, Barnes, Achiuwa, Trent being the 5th out of that group, but I think they all look good. You can even throw Chris Boucher in here in larger field tournaments as kind of a very volatile player. He hasn't been playing a ton this year, but he did play 18 minutes last game. You saw Goran Dragic just completely removed from the rotation. Delano Banton replaced him, but Boucher got a bit more run than he has been. So if that's something where he was kind of injured to start the year, if they're just kind of ramping him up to where he's going to get 18 to 20 minutes at 4,700, he has a ceiling as well.
Speaking of, Josh of Los Angeles with the super chat says, does Boucher get 25 minutes or more tonight? I'm scared. That still seems like a lot for Boucher tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I have him at like 18.
Yeah,
which puts him in play. But like, if you think he's playing 25 minutes, then he's like one of the better plays on the slate, but I don't really know where he's getting those minutes from.
Boucher, he's one of the better per minute guys in the league. It's just you can never trust him to get the playing time. So
yeah, and like I don't know where the minutes are coming from. Like assuming like you're still even last game you saw Achua and Birch get their minutes. So unless you think Boucher is just like either going to start taking minutes from Birch or he's going to replace Achua, like he's not taking minutes from Scotty Barnes. He's not taking minutes from OG. So I don't really know where 25 minutes is coming from outside of foul trouble.
So with the extended minutes from Boucher, assuming he gets 18 to 20, does it hurt anyone as a starter or no?
I don't think so. I mean, he's like a 20 to 22% usage guy. None of the, like Barnes, Achua, Anunoby, I would think are still just going to get theirs. Van Vliet clearly is going to get his. So I don't think in that number of minutes he really has a negative impact on much.
All right, let's talk about Indy and Brooklyn then, unless you got anything else for Toronto.
Nope.
Pacers getting 8.5 on the road, 223 total. No Malcolm Brogdon today, so that's significant. And we're still waiting on Karis LeVert. Do you have him in or out?
I have him in right now for 21 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say there's no way that he plays significant amount of minutes at this stage. But with Malcolm Brogdon out, you have to look at someone at Domantas Sabonis, and we can talk about his per minute production, assist, rebound rate, all of that with Brogdon off the floor. We've seen a decent sample size of that over the past couple of years. But while Sabonis hasn't offered that insane like triple-double threat upside every single game as we saw him often last season, you have to think that he benefits from this, even if LeVert's active and plays a handful of minutes, that Sabonis will just do more ball handling, more playmaking with Brogdon off the floor. Listen, I know that McConnell's, not a bad backup point guard whatsoever, but at the same time, you would think it still benefits Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah, that's my assumption. One of the biggest differences that we've seen early in the season is the way that ball handling and assist opportunities are being distributed between Brogdon and Sabonis. Sabonis is averaging 5.3 potential assists per 36 minutes this year. Last year, he averaged 11.4. Brogdon's gone from 12 to 16. So, and keep in mind, you have Rick Carlisle as the new coach in Indiana. So you've seen Sabonis be less involved as a playmaker, and that has really hurt his assist numbers this year. You could just see TJ McConnell take on a massive role here. That's certainly possible, but I think it's more likely that you see Sabonis. Obviously, McConnell gets a bump as well with Brogdon out, but I think it's likely you see Sabonis take on a bigger role as well. You get back to, elevated assist numbers from him right at a time where his salary is decreasing. So he's still playing huge minutes this year. He's still involved on the offensive end. It's just that the assist numbers have dropped off with Brogdon out. I think it's very likely that they rebound.
How many minutes are you giving to McConnell? Because this is already somebody that's playing 22 minutes per game. He's got upwards of 24 minutes in several games already this season.
I have him at 32 minutes. I wouldn't be shocked if he played more. We definitely saw that like physically he can do it last year when he had those games where he would just play like every single minute. But clearly a new coach here. I have him at 32 minutes. I think that if LeVert were out, I would maybe push that a little bit further. But if you add LeVert's body in here to soak up, call it, 20, 21 minutes, I think 32 is a pretty reasonable number for McConnell.
I think he averaged 31 minutes per game in spots that Brogdon didn't play last year. So,
yeah, I mean, in 5 starts last year, he averaged 38 minutes. But
38 minutes in 5 starts.
Yeah, I think there might have been overtime mixed in there though.
But so I don't think he started every game that Brogdon was out though, because didn't Brogdon miss a good amount of games?
Yeah, Holiday got some starts too.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. So that tells us something though, doesn't it? Because in the event that, Brogdon missed a lot of games last year. He missed 16. I just wanted to make sure that was right what I was looking at. If McConnell comes off the bench though, we could rightfully assume that he gets like high 20s, but if he starts, you're putting him probably mid 30s.
Yeah, I mean, I have him at 32. I would bump it up a little bit if LeVert's out. I don't want to read too much into the playing time last year since it's a completely different coach.
Sure. But do you think? The only reason I say that is because McConnell's already a big part of the rotation. If he wasn't, I probably wouldn't mention it. But
right, yeah, like I wouldn't be surprised if it goes over. I mean, I guess you could give him a couple of extra minutes. Like normally when I'm trying to kind of put a number on somebody projection wise that we haven't seen this role yet this season, I kind of just try and think of it like, would I be really surprised if you went 2 or 3 minutes over? Would I be really surprised if you went 3 minutes lower? At 32, I wouldn't be shocked if he only played 30 minutes. I wouldn't be shocked if he played 34. I guess you could push it a little bit because I would be surprised if he only played like 28. But yeah, I mean, I think somewhere in like the 32, 33 minute range makes sense.
With the way Rick Carlisle is killing his starters with minutes this year, you never
That's a
know,
good
man.
point.
Yeah, they're getting huge, man. Levert might come out and play the whole game. You know, at this point, who knows? But seriously, Carlisle's been like I'm not even kidding. He's been like Tom Thibodeau style with some of these minutes. It's nuts. So yeah, I mean, if McConnell starts, I think even at that price point, he's a solid option against Brooklyn. What else are you doing with the Brooklyn Net? Or I'm sorry, with the Pacers tonight?
So I think that there's other spots that I like in tournaments. One of them in particular, Miles Turner at 5,400. He's just like your prototypical, when people like talk about tournament plays, it's like they're talking about Miles Turner, where he produces at a high level. He's producing at a high level this year. He, has for his whole career. He's just foul prone, and also at times his minutes get jerked around, but he's only 5,400 on DraftKings. This is a game where I think, it's pretty likely to be high scoring. Turner, if he's able to play 26, 27 minutes at relatively low ownership right now, projected for 6.5% on DraftKings, I think he looks pretty good. Not a spot that I would really want to get to in cash games, I don't think, but in tournaments, I like the upside there. We mentioned McConnell, Sabonis. Chris Duarte at 5,500 is projected right now to be the highest owned guy on Indiana on DraftKings. I don't totally get that. I think he's fine. I think he plays 35, 36 minutes. I think that there's a little bit more usage to go around without Brogdon. I'm just not anticipating him taking on like a much bigger playmaking role, because I think that McConnell's going to do a good job of that. And then I think Sabonis gets the bump. So I think Duarte is a good play. I prefer McConnell to him, and especially if he's going to be twice as popular.
On the other side of this one with the Brooklyn Nets, you've got really just strange overall performance this season so far from James Harden. I mean, they're still big favorites here. Indiana's 27th in defensive rating so far. But I mean, even without Kyrie Irving, Harden has, and this is worth considering, he still has a 28% usage rate, which you're playing alongside Durant, 38% assist rate, 10% rebound rate. So what is it right now about James Harden that is holding him back and curtailing his production? Because it's been ugly so far based on what we expect from him each night.
Yeah, well, part of the problem is that you mentioned the usage rate still being pretty solid, but that's including the times where he decides he's going to try and draw a foul and chucks the ball off the backboard. And so like, it's not a real foul. It's not a real.
He's averaging 3 free throw attempts per game.
Right. Yeah. He's down a little over 4 free throw attempts per game. To me, that's not like a big concern from a fantasy standpoint, though. Because even let's say it stays at 3 for the whole year, you're talking about less than 4 actual fantasy points. At $9,600, if that's all that is changed from, James Harden of previous years, he's still phenomenal. But you're also just seeing him. I mean, for one, he's shooting poorly. He has his effective field goal percentage is way lower this year than it was last year. And part of that, I think, is the fact that he's just still not used to having to, actually shoot. And yeah, not just like run into somebody and then throw the ball in the air. So I think that it's something, he's still a really, really talented player. Obviously, he's going to turn it around sooner rather than later. And his salary now is accounting for that. It's not like you're talking about an 11K James Harden. So, going back to last year, he's averaged 1.49 DraftKings points per minute without Irving. So far this year, he's at about 1.2, 1.25 DraftKings points per minute, 1.21. So if he's going to play around 36 minutes here against an Indiana team that's been really bad defensively so far, I still think he's a good play. I do think Durant's the better play out of the two. It's only a $700 price difference on DraftKings. Durant's not having any sort of issues this year that Harden is. He's averaging 1.53 DraftKings points per minute, 31.5% usage rate. Assist percentage is up to almost 29%. He rebounds at a higher rate. And going back to last year, without Irving on the floor, Harden averaged 1.49 DraftKings points per minute. Durant was at 1.56. So he's always been the better per minute fantasy producer. He's not having any issues with the new rules, and he's only $700 more expensive. So I think Harden's a good play. I think Durant is a little bit better play, especially if, value opens up, and it'll be pretty easy to find that $700. But right now, Harden's projected for 26% ownership compared to 16% for Durant.
How much do you like Durant, though?
I like him a lot. The issue is that I don't like him as much as I like Jokic if Jokic plays. I think he's comparable, probably a little bit better than Paul George. You have Sabonis, who's a little bit cheaper, that I really like. So this is a slate where there's a lot of guys at the top that I like, but I think Durant is going, at least relative to Harden, a little bit under-owned.
Okay. What else are you doing for Brooklyn, and how closely are you paying attention to the news here at center with Nick Claxton, because he's dealing with that illness. He wasn't playing a ton of minutes, but you were getting between like 16 to 18 over the last 3 games from him.
Yeah, so Claxton didn't start the last game that he played. He played 16 minutes off the bench. You could see him reinserted into the starting lineup here against Indiana's big front court, but I don't think that's a must when you think about Sabonis and Turner. I think they could still just go with Griffin and Durant. But really, all that it matters to me is if Bruce Brown starts again, with or without Claxton, I'm expecting you're getting 30 to like 32 minutes from Brown. At 3,800, he's a reasonable value. If he's coming off the bench, I'm not going there. I don't really have interest in anything else from Brooklyn. Their front court rotation has just been so bad for DFS, where Griffin's playing 20 minutes, Aldridge is playing 12, Claxton's playing 16, Millsap's playing 12. There's just like not a whole lot to see there unless multiple guys are out.
Anything else for the Nets, or is it just the big 2? And then of course, Bruce Brown, if he's in the starting lineup.
Yeah, that's all I got from the Nets.
All right. Well, we got 2 down, 5 to go. Who would you say your favorite plays are from this game? I mean, Sabonis, James Harden, if McConnell starts. I mean, is this going to be one that you're attacking heavily?
Yeah, I like this game a lot. I would say my favorites are Sabonis, McConnell, Durant.
Okay, fair enough. Hey, Yahoo Fantasy. Have you not checked it out yet? I hope you have. I'm assuming if you've watched the show, if you're not new to the show, you would know about this. If you are new to the show, welcome to everyone. And listen up, or just if you haven't checked this out yet, we have a deal with Yahoo, a promo with Yahoo, where if you sign up using the link in the description and the one Tyler Xander's about to put in the chat right now, very simple. You sign up using that link and deposit $10 or more if you want. You'll get a free month of Awesemo Plus, $90 value, ownership, player projections, top stack tool, boom bust tool, lineup builder, everything. And you get the Fantasy Cruncher add-on if you want that as well. All of our tools built by Awesemo himself, #1 ranked DFS player out there. And people have won a lot of money using these tools. No doubt about it. Just check our Awesemo Hall of Fame page on Twitter for proof. Look, it's really one of those deals where you get it for free. So there's no point in not doing it, because I'm pretty sure that Yahoo, I'm not sure if they're still doing this. I think they are. I think you still get $10 in credit on Yahoo when you sign up using this link anyway. So you deposit $10, you get $10 in credit, wipes that out, $90 free Awesemo Plus Platinum subscription for the month for basketball, football, baseball. Well, it's almost done, but hockey, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, esports, everything. If they have content out there, we got content, or if they have contests, we have content for it. So this isn't just basketball. It's every single sport. All you do is use the link, $10 or more when you deposit. They'll send your information over to us, and we will email you with what you need to know to get set up. So, I mean, it's that easy. And even check this out. If you want immediate access, because you have to enter a paid contest too. You have to deposit 10 and enter a paid contest as well. If you want immediate access, say there's a slate you're really looking to get in on, email us at support@awesemo.com and we'll expedite the process and get you set up quicker. But yeah, so do that. Claim the 10 free dollars at Awesemo, wipe it out, get it for free, and use all of the tools that we have for Yahoo over there on the site to win money. It's just a win-win, and don't pass it up. All right, Adam, let's talk about game number 3 here. We got 3 of 7. Charlotte getting 5.5 at Miami, 222.5 total. Yo, what are we? I've actually been meaning to ask you this. What are we to make of Miles Bridges right now? I mean, he's gone for 30. These are real point totals, not fantasy totals. 30, 32, 25, and 31 over his last 4 games. Usage is sky high. Minutes are through the roof. He's essentially doing everything except consistently getting to the free throw line, but maybe that comes in time too.
Yeah, he's shooting a lot. He has a 25.4% usage rate. There's a couple of things that I would caution with him. So last year he had an 18.3% usage rate. I think it's very likely that he has a higher usage rate this year than he did last year. Just would make sense. You know, he's a good young player. But the 2 things I would point to are, one, LaMelo Ball keeps, for whatever reason, not getting his normal amount of minutes, whether a lot of times it's been foul trouble, other times it's been him playing poorly and just getting taken off the floor. But anytime LaMelo is not on the floor, that's going to bump the usage for the other guys out there. And then also Terry Rozier has only played one game this year. Kelly Oubre has an 18.8% usage rate. He's been the guy filling in for Rozier. I expect Rozier's usage rate to be several points higher than that. So the combination of probably more LaMelo minutes going forward and Terry Rozier eventually coming back makes me think that Bridges doesn't maintain his 25% usage rate, but I think it's likely he still settles into, 22-ish% compared to the 18 he had last year.
So where's his ownership at right now?
It's got to be low at this price.
You would think so, right? 6%.
6%.
Yeah, 6%.
I'd rather play LaMelo at 1.
Yeah, that makes a lot. I mean, God, if it keeps trending at this rate, you're going to see them at the same price by next week. And you're just getting more peripherals out of one of those guys. Like Miles Bridges on Yahoo is $30, 11.4% over there. Okay. So talk to me about LaMelo then with the 1% ownership. I mean, obviously this guy was hyped beyond belief and for good reason. I mean, he's been great, but at what point do we start to be concerned about these minutes? Serious question. I know he got 33 against Boston, but that was an overtime game, right?
Yeah. So it's
so that would mean, I'm sorry, but that would mean that in regulation, he hasn't played 30 minutes in a single game in regulation yet.
Right. Yeah. With LaMelo, it's kind of, you can almost just like make whatever narrative you want about his minutes at this point. He's been in foul trouble a lot this year, and that has certainly held the minutes back. 3-3-3-6, 2 personal fouls through his first 5 games. But the 2 personal fouls was last game. They were both in the first quarter or in the first half. So it cost him some run. But then he also essentially got benched for Ish Smith down the stretch. He didn't even close that game, ended up playing 24 minutes. So I think it's a combination of like, I still think there's 33, 34, 35-minute games in LaMelo Ball's range of outcomes where he's playing well and he avoids foul trouble. But I do think it's an actual concern. Like, I don't think you can just look and say, oh yeah, keeps fouling people. He's the correct projection is like 34 minutes because the combination of the fouling and having a quality backup that has already taken minutes from him at times, it's going to just lower that average projection. So it makes me still think he's a good tournament option, less so tonight, just because it's also a tough matchup against Miami. It's a slate where there's a lot of plays that I like, but he's kind of always going to be a good tournament option because he still has almost a 30% usage rate this year. He's averaging 1.43 DraftKings points per minute. He's playing at a really, really high level from a fantasy standpoint. It's just really difficult to trust the minutes. I would like to, be confident I'm getting 34 minutes a night from LaMelo. For now, I'm projecting like 31, 32, and even that doesn't feel super comfortable because he hasn't done it in regulation yet.
Yeah, so that game where he does play 35 minutes in regulation, with that per minute production, he's going to go off. I mean,
right.
That's the idea. Yeah. Do you have any other interest in guys like Hayward, Mason Plumlee? Any of these guys stand out to you as viable mid-range spots?
There's not much that stands out to me here. It's a tough spot against Miami, I think. LaMelo, Hayward, Bridges, I would say all 3 of those guys are very similar to me, where if they just sort of end up in a lineup as one of your couple of, low-owned contrarian pieces, they're fine. Like they all have high ceilings. But I'm not singling any one of them out as somebody I expect to have a lot of tonight.
What about on the other side of this one with Miami? We teased it earlier, alluding to the fact that Bam Adebayo, who is questionable, this is huge news. That's why you tuned into Live Before Lock. Eric and Greg taking you up till 7. When this news breaks, they'll surely hit you with it. I'm hoping it hits before that because this is a 7:30 game that locks. We only have one 7:00 game too, so keep that in mind. But yeah, I mean, Adam, if Bam Adebayo is out, you have someone in Dedmon who's averaging well over a fantasy point per minute this season in about 16 minutes off the bench. You would think he stands to benefit in a huge way.
Yeah. Bam being questionable, if he sits, I assume Dwayne Dedmon at 3,500 steps into the starting lineup. He would look absolutely fantastic. This year, obviously a small sample, he's just been playing off the bench. But he has averaged 1.18 DraftKings points per minute. Going back to the last few seasons, I believe he's over a fantasy point per minute guy. I'm pulling that up now, but he's always been.
I can pull it up for you.
As a starter the last 3 seasons, Dedmon, 18 starts, 0.95 DraftKings points per minute. If you're getting even, 24 to 26 minutes at 3,500, that's going to look really good. So if Bam is out, he looks great. But also if Bam is out, you're getting increased production for Jimmy Butler. Since last year, he's averaged 1.5 fantasy points per minute without Bam on the floor. Adebayo also has a 27% usage rate this year. So you're talking about, and 24% since the start of last year. So you're talking about a relatively high usage guy. You're talking about a good rebounder. You're talking about somebody that gets assists. You're just bumping rates for Jimmy Butler in basically every category if Bam sits.
Yeah. What was Dedmon's per minute average last year?
Last year, I'm not sure. I just looked at starts over the last few years and he was at 0.95.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, as a starter, he's going to lose per minute production, but it doesn't matter if you're around the basket enough to soak up some boards and some easy putback opportunity or easy scoring opportunities, rebounds, you name it. So yeah, he would become chalk, and for good reason. Anytime you get a dirt cheap center that could give you, 24 or so minutes, potentially more. Like, how many would you give him if he starts? I would think 23, 24 seems reasonable.
Yeah, I would think 24 to 26 just because there's no real backup behind him. Like, I guess PJ Tucker probably gets the backup minutes, and then you get more minutes for like Strus, maybe Gabe Vincent gets in the rotation. Tyler Hero maybe plays a little bit more, but there's not. Yeah, I mean, I would go mid-20s. He could play more, and it wouldn't be shocking. But barring foul trouble, I'd feel pretty comfortable he plays at least mid-20s.
What else are you doing with Miami?
So Butler and Bam. So Butler and Dedmon. If
Claxton's
Bam is
out, by the way, for whatever that's worth. Sorry,
it probably means Bruce Brown starting, but
okay.
Still have to wait for that lineup. If Bam is in, he looks really good as well. He's only 7,800. If he plays, I assume he's healthy and good to play. He has been one of the best rebounders so far this year. He is 3rd or 4th. I wrote it in the deep dive today, but and it's not loading, but he's in the top 5 in rebound chances per game this year. He's in the top 5 in actual rebounds per game. He's not even been playing that many minutes. So that's really impressive to be, at the top of the list there. Has a 27% usage rate, up from 24% last year. He's a really, really good play here, I think, if he's able to play. Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, both okay in tournaments. I think both would look better if Bam is out because there would be more assists, more usage to go around, potentially more minutes for Hero if they do end up running some smaller lineups with PJ Tucker at the 5. So if Bam's in, I think it's Bam, Butler, and then I don't love anything else. You can still take shots on Hero, Robinson, Lowry. If Bam is out, I think it's Butler, Dedmon, and then guys like Lowry and Hero look a little bit better.
All right, let's keep going here. We got 4 games to go. If you guys have questions, hit us with them. I'm going to try and answer them, but we got about 20 minutes, so it's unlikely. Sacramento and New Orleans Pelicans, the Kings against the Pelicans, laying 1.5, Adam, 221 total here. No real noteworthy news to speak of at all when it comes to Sacramento. So let's go ahead and just start here in the backcourt with De'Aaron Fox. And what do you make so far about, what are we, like a week and a half into the season? What have you made so far of this New Orleans team? Defense has been kind of middle of the road. The problem with them, and this is what makes it interesting, is they haven't been good, but it's because their offense is 30 or 29th in offensive rating. So they've been so terrible when it comes to producing on that end. Their defense has been somewhat serviceable, but overall a pretty ugly team so far.
Yeah, defense has been fine, like you said, but I think that there's still stuff to like from New Orleans, even though the offense hasn't been that good. Joe Val has been extremely valuable this year. His salary is getting up there, but I still think he's underpriced for the run that he's getting. He's averaging 35 minutes per game. They've also been involved in a couple of blowouts. In the 3 competitive games he's played in, he's played 36, 39, and 36 minutes. He's averaging about 1.25 DraftKings points per minute, leads the NBA in rebound chances per game. He's 2nd in total rebounds per game. He's in a good spot here. He's got 30 pounds on Rashawn Holmes. He's got about 3 inches of height as well. So it's just a spot where I think that barring foul trouble or something, that limits his minutes that we can't predict. Valanciunas looks great again. I think Brandon Ingram's a strong option. I like Valanciunas a little bit more, but Ingram's averaging 37 minutes per game. He's got a 30% usage rate this year. He's still involved as a rebounder and, playmaker as well, even though he is mostly, getting his fantasy production from scoring. Devontae Graham, averaging about 33 minutes per game. I think, it's reasonable to expect him to get that again tonight. 1 fantasy point per minute for him, 24% assist percentage, 23% usage rate. I think $6K is a reasonable salary. And then Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he's my 4th, out of the guys that you would play on New Orleans: Valanciunas, Ingram, Graham, Alexander Walker. Alexander Walker is my fourth guy just because he's a little bit more expensive than Graham. He doesn't typically play them quite as many minutes as Ingram, and he's not as high a usage guy as Ingram either. But I still think in tournaments he's got a nice ceiling. I just would put him behind those other guys.
Dude, it's so nice seeing Joval get these minutes finally. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. What I was saying though, and I guess it was confusing. What I was saying is, although New Orleans has been bad and like 1-4, the immediate assumption for a lot of people would be that they're, an amazing matchup for opponents. And I'm not saying that they aren't, but they're playing at a middle of the road pace. They've had a middle of the road defense. What I was saying is their offense has been awful. So like it makes them look like maybe on the surface a better matchup for opponents from a fantasy standpoint than they are. But that isn't saying we can't get to some spots for the Kings, just that New Orleans isn't like an Orlando Magic level matchup for an opposing team.
Okay. Yeah. I'm following. They've also, I think, been middle of the pack. Yeah. Middle of the pack in pace, middle of the pack.
That's what I said. That 15th in pace. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a spot where like, I'm with you. I don't think it's like a great spot or anything. It's a 111 implied total for Sacramento. It's healthy. It's not 116 or 117 or anything.
Right. They've been involved in a lot of low scoring games too. The Pelicans for sure. But what do you do with the Kings tonight?
I like some of the pricing here. De'Aaron Fox started the season out priced really expensive. He's come down to 8,400 on DraftKings, 8K on FanDuel. He's one of several guards that have come out of the gates just shooting really, really poorly this year.
But shooting a lot.
Yeah, exactly. We have Damian Lillard on the slate as well, who's very similar. Fox has a 30.7% usage rate this year. He has a 42.5% true shooting percentage. His 3-point percentage is down from, I don't know why I can't see anything in the deep dive, but I think it was like 30.
He's shooting 16.7% from three.
Yeah, it was like 32.2% last year. It's 16.7 this year.
Yep.
So like that's going, not saying he's like a phenomenal 3-point shooter or anything, but he's clearly not this bad. He's still getting the shots. He's still getting a bunch of assist opportunities. He's still playing a bunch of minutes. There's just really nothing but upside here for De'Aaron Fox. His drives per game are almost identical to last year. So it's not like he's taking, fewer shots in the paint or anything like that really. So I think going to guys like De'Aaron Fox that the only thing really driving their price down is they're shooting poorly. Typically that's where you want to get to. Now, granted, in the case of Fox, you could say he was overpriced to start the season. I think that would be accurate. So his salary coming down a bit isn't quite as big a deal as some other players, but I still think Fox looks good. Rashawn Holmes on DraftKings, I think looks pretty good at 5,800. It's kind of a scary matchup for him against a relatively high usage center that is good at rebounding and has a massive size advantage in Joval. But at the same time, Holmes has been undersized his entire career. And like, he knows how to play as an undersized center because he's an undersized center. Like, everybody's bigger than him that he goes up against. So it's not that concerning. It's just, it makes it a little bit easier to see how things could go wrong. But at 5,800, there's been 3 games this year where Holmes has either not been in foul trouble and the game hasn't been a blowout. 29, 32, 29 minutes for him. So I think expecting around 29, 30 minutes makes sense. He's played very well this year. He's typically a good fantasy producer. So I think he's underpriced on DraftKings. And then you have Harrison Barnes in basically the same kind of thing as Miles Bridges, where he's just gone from like an 18% usage guy to 24%. He's shooting really, really well from 3. You expect that to come back. But if he's going to be a higher usage guy this year, he's going to deserve a bit higher price tag. So I think he's okay. Like, he's expensive. I think the salary now basically reflects what he has done this year for the most part. So he's okay as a low owned guy, but I would be getting to De'Aaron Fox. I'd be getting to Rashawn Holmes before Barnes.
Rashawn Holmes doesn't really play like a smaller center though. Like,
how do you mean?
Weren't you saying he's undersized?
Yeah.
He is. But I'm saying he's not the type of guy that gets tossed around by bigger centers either.
Right. Like, yeah. Like, I think in general, because what I was saying was like, it's not like it would be shocking if he has a little bit of trouble with not fouling Joval, just given the size.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I got you.
But I also do think that, like, people were making the case with Harrell yesterday being small. Like, I think it kind of gets overstated because these guys that are playing center in the NBA at, 6'9", 6'10", 230 pounds, and they've been doing it for years. It's not like at any point they were big and now they're having to deal with being smaller. Like, they know how to play as a small dude. Right.
And he's also just extremely active out there,
right,
which is going to help you a lot. Like, if you're small and just like a lumbering, somehow small, that's not going to help. But Holmes has proven he can do that. Plus, when you think about it, like, if it was PJ Tucker, yeah, I think we could make the argument that like the Joval against Houston with PJ Tucker, or where was PJ Tucker before Miami last year? He was still in Houston, right?
Milwaukee.
Right?
Milwaukee.
You're right, he was, but he was in Houston before Milwaukee, right? Yeah. 6'7", like that's just not going to get it done. The only win there is they shoot you off the court, but why would you take Joval off the court when you're going to eat up all the rebounds? So I don't have an issue with that. Plus, I mean, how long does Alex Len make it before he's in foul trouble or before his coach finds another reason to bench him? Because no matter where that guy goes, nobody wants him to get significant minutes.
Speaking of that, and also somebody just mentioned it in chat going to Alex Len, I think Tristan Thompson plays today. I don't really know what the Kings are doing with their backup center rotation, but so far it has been Tristan Thompson is the backup, then Alex Len is the backup, then Tristan Thompson is the backup, then Alex Len is the backup. This, if they're just alternating between the two at backup center, today is Tristan Thompson. I think that is notable just because if good value doesn't open up today, I would expect that I get to a little bit of whichever backup center I project to play. I'm projecting it to be Thompson. I don't know. It's kind of just an educated guess, but definitely be careful with your Alex Len plays because based on what Walton's been doing so far this year, he might not play.
Jared Neal said he won a ring with the Bucks, you idiot. Thanks, pal. He played 32 games. He played the majority of games in Houston last year. I mean, it's really not that egregious, but
Bam Adebayo on track to play.
Yeah, I saw that. Plus, PJ Tucker's pretty forgettable from a DFS standpoint. Let's talk about Dallas and the Denver Nuggets. Luka Doncic, you're going to have to pay for him. Adam, has been the case for like ever now. And his ownership is exceedingly low for someone like himself. Like I said, though, when you're getting up to $11,000, highest priced player on the slate, a lot of other quality top tier options, that tends to be the case. Now on FanDuel, he's not nearly as expensive as, well, he is. He's just cheaper than a few other players. So, I mean, I guess all of that can be factored in, but with Luka's ownership, or with his ownership being around like 10% on DraftKings right now, is this a spot where you might get overweight on him, or is that 11K against Denver just a little too rich for your blood?
It's tough. It's one of the spots I'm actually interested to see where I personally end up, but I can obviously talk about, the way that I see it. I think he should be low owned on this slate, especially assuming Jokic plays. I think Jokic is the preferable option. I think the spot is really difficult, back to back in Denver. He's expensive. And then I feel like I need to drive this point home every single time it happens. His production does not increase when Kristaps Porzingis doesn't play. His ownership typically goes up, but it's not, I'm not saying that like I expect him to be markedly worse. Granted, with Porzingis in over the last 2 seasons, he's averaged 1.61 DraftKings points per minute. In games Porzingis doesn't play, he's at 1.49. The assist percentage comes down, the efficiency comes down a bit, usage rate goes up a little bit. But at the very least, you're talking about like the same player in terms of his fantasy production. So I don't think Porzingis being out is a bump to him, but I still think you're talking about a very, very good player that is capable of going out, throwing up a monster game. And anytime he plays, he's capable of being the highest scorer on a slate. So him being 7% owned is pretty appealing. Just anytime you can roster Luka Doncic to 7% owned. But that being said, I do prefer Jokic, and then there's all these other like 10 guys around 10K that I like as well. There's also the point guard position is also really deep. Like you have Lillard at 9,300, you have Fox at 8,400, you have McConnell, you have a lot of just really good point guard options at different price tiers as well. So I think the ownership makes sense. I'm not looking at it saying like I have to be overweight on Luka here. I'm certainly never going to be mad if I have 20% Luka at 7% owned, but I wouldn't be surprised if I don't get that much here.
What about the rest of Dallas?
I think that Kleba is right now one of the better point per dollar values. It has absolutely nothing with what he did. Nothing to do with what he did yesterday. Don't expect anything close to what he did. He averaged 1.5 fantasy points per minute. He had 6 blocks, 1 steal, also doubled in 29 minutes. That is most likely the best fantasy game Maxi Kleber will ever have on a per minute basis. But he's still only 3,300 on DraftKings. He's 3,900 on FanDuel. He played 29 minutes off the bench. Boban's probable to play tonight. That makes Kleber's minutes a little bit more risky, but I think it's more likely that if Boban plays, he just takes a few minutes from Cauley Stein. I think you probably still get 28 to 30 minutes from Kleber. He played about half his minutes with Doncic on, about half with him off yesterday. He's Going back to last year, he's 0.61 DraftKings points per minute with Doncic on and with Porzingis off. He's 0.82 with both of them off. So you would expect, 0.7 to, 0.75 fantasy points per minute on average at 3,300 if he plays 28 minutes. He's a good point per dollar projection. I think that right now we have him projected for 1% ownership. That's definitely not right. Oh, I hadn't refreshed. He's probably higher now. Yeah, we have him at 16% now. I think that makes sense. Like he's not giving you a really high ceiling, but he does project as a good value. So he's pretty dependent for me on what other value opens up. I think you can take shots on Dwight Powell again. He's kind of very similar to Klebo, where he's not a great fantasy producer, but he is cheap. And if other stuff doesn't open, then he projects okay. Reggie Bullock played 30 minutes yesterday. Didn't really do much, but he's also cheap. So the point being, I'm not confident in any of these guys, but given the value we have right now, them being close to minimum salary and playing, 26 to 30 minutes is pretty valuable. The other guy I would point out is Jalen Brunson at 4,800. His salary actually came down after yesterday. He's likely to pick up a few more minutes with Porzingis out. There's more usage to go around. So I do like Brunson at 4,800.
Okay. Oh, look, you've joined into the group. James says, you two idiots realize how many slates Tucker took home last year?
0.
Yeah. He goes, if you played DFS, you've seen Tucker over and over, basically any fifth time you didn't play him. Well, fortunately, we have ways to look that up. He had 30 fantasy points twice all season. So no, not taking home a lot of slates unless like his 19 is getting you there. But yeah, 30 plus fantasy points twice all season long. I suppose in some odd twisted reality, that's once every 5 games, but
he might have been useful on showdown slates that he was on.
Sure. But
I'm not even confident in that statement.
Anyone's useful. All I know is I had one where I took the over on Tucker 5.5 points in the finals, and he had 5.5 points 6 minutes or he had 6 points 6 minutes into the game, finished with 6 points. So in typical Tucker fashion, that's what you get from him. Once in a while, it works. Do you like Jokic's last game? He was on pace for an absurd amount of plays. He had 24, 6 and 6 in 15 minutes and then got hurt. If he plays today, how much do you expect to have of him against Dallas?
A lot. Yeah, I mean, he's my favorite pay up guy if he plays. And the thing is too, like he's easy to swap off of. If we get news that 9:00 or something, he's out. You can still swap him to Davis. You can swap him if he's at utility. You can swap him to Luka. In a lot of lineups, at least you can swap him to LeBron if LeBron's in. There's still plenty. You can swap him to Dame. You can swap him to Paul George. Like there's a million good players you can swap to if Jokic gets ruled out. But projecting him in, he looks really, really good here. He's off to a great start this year, averaging 1.82 DraftKings points per minute. He's averaged 1.66 DraftKings points per minute without Murray on the floor going back to last year. Prior to the game where he was hurt 15 minutes in, he's averaging about 34 minutes per game as well. So he's my favorite pay up option, assuming he plays.
All right, we'll speed it up a little bit here. What else do you like for Denver?
Not a whole lot. Michael Porter Jr. is still reasonable at 6,500, but his rebound chances are down. His rebounding rate is down. It's just pretty and his usage is down too, but I attribute the usage being down to him not shooting very well. The rebounding being down, I think, can be attributed to changes in defensive scheme, changes in Aaron Gordon being on the team. So I don't feel as confident in that bouncing back. Nothing else really stands out here. And if Jokic were to be ruled out, that's like an extra 10 minutes of show because you would just basically just play everybody from Denver if Jokic is ruled out. Alex,
would you get a neck tattoo? I called you Alex. Adam, would you get a neck tattoo?
No.
It's a conversation in chat right now. You wouldn't do it? You wouldn't get like lips right here?
Would I get a tattoo like Kenyon Martin? No.
I'd get a neck tat for sure.
I'm not that confident in my DFS playing ability to start getting neck or face tattoos.
Oh, there's nothing to do with that. If that was the case, I wouldn't be getting a neck tattoo. Okay, so we got Clippers and Portland. And then we wrap this one up on the back end with Cleveland and the Lakers. So we got a few minutes to make this work. I will say first, though, Adam, and I'm going to flip to OddsShopper real quick, Tyler. Over there, you can sort by expected win rate, expected ROI, and our projections, which are behind paywall usually. We have them put on every single one of these prop bets. Now, it takes less than 30 seconds to find the best bet that you're going to find out there, and we'll give you the best book to do it at without having to do any work. Just click Shop NBA or Shop NFL. Give me one that you love tonight using the tools.
Glad I caught the last part of that question because I just completely tuned you out. But I really like Damian
Was it
Lillard.
the neck tat thing?
Yeah, then I started talking in chat, and Damian Lillard under 7.5. Wait. Oh, I read that wrong. I don't like that one. Colin Sexton over 2.5 assists. We haven't talked about that game yet, but I think there's reason to think that Colin Sexton plays a lot more minutes tonight than he has been for most of the season. So I like getting the over on him.
Okay. Yeah. And you can see on the screen, it's the most simplest thing ever. DraftKings minus 110 right there on Colin Sexton over 2.5, 79% expected win rate, 52% expected ROI. And then we have his projections there. I mean, use it. It's totally free. You're going to love it. Talk to me about this next one, Clippers and Portland. If we're starting with the LA Clippers here, coming into Portland as 3-point dogs, is there anyone you look at as a priority tonight against this Blazers squad?
The way value looks right now, I like going back to Nick Batum. Played 32 minutes last game. He'd only played 22 in his first start in place of Morris, but that game was a blowout. He got 32 minutes, actually lost a couple down the stretch to blow out again. But since last year, he's been a 0.75 fantasy point per minute guy alongside George without Kawhi. At 4K, that's still going to look pretty good. You can take some shots at Luke Kennard as well. We're seeing sort of the old Lou Williams rotation for him recently, where with Morris being out, where he comes in late in the first, plays the entire rest of the half, comes in late in the third, plays the entire rest of the half. So at 3,900, you can take some shots on him as well. Zubats is interesting in tournaments. I had a lot of him, way too much of him last slate. He played 25 minutes, didn't close, even with Jared Allen on the floor, which was disappointing. But there's at least the path for him to close games with Morris being out. He doesn't have to, but going up against a relatively high usage big in Nurkic, I think that you could, if he's playing well, see Zubats get more minutes. And even if he only plays 24, 25 minutes at 5K, there's a path to success. And then Paul George, I think, having a really, really good start to the year, over 1.4 DraftKings points per minute. He's a good option. I would still put him behind like Kevin Durant. I would rather get to Luka if I can, but I think George looks pretty good.
I love how I'm blamed for us running out of time every day, as if I'm the only one that's talking on here. Unbelievable. Do you like Portland a lot? Are you going to the well with Lillard despite a rough start to the season?
Yeah, Lillard's my favorite play from Portland. He's really, really cheap again on FanDuel, but even 9,300 on DraftKings. He's got a couple of things that have just artificially driven his price down. For one, Portland has played one competitive game this year, 3 blowouts, 1 competitive game. Lillard played 40 minutes in regulation in the competitive game. So there's no real reason to think that his actual playing time is going to be lower than it normally is. The usage is there. It's a little bit lower than McCollum this year so far, but you can expect it to flip, but it's still up, close to 30%. He's just shooting really, really poorly. He's another one that he's shot 6 for 35 from 3 to open the season. He's close to a 40% 3-point shooter on average. That's just going to get better. 44.4% true shooting percentage. He's getting to the line similar amount of times per game as he has in the past. There's nothing about Damian Lillard that makes me think he's going to struggle long-term. So getting him at 9,300 here, I think is a fantastic price tag.
All right. Cleveland, LA Lakers. And by the way, almost 400 likes, 2,600 people watching. Could easily push this north of 5 to when we hand this over to Greg and Eric in just a minute. They've got a little gift waiting for them when they come on stream. 500 likes. That's not too much to ask, is it? Thank you in advance. I know we'll get there. Pretty simple. I think we probably get to like 600, but I don't know. Maybe my expectations are too high. Cleveland getting 8 points, 221.5 total. Lakers defense has been dismal this season, and we're waiting on the LeBron news. Break this one down for us, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, right now there's not a whole lot to like from this game, I don't think. But I did mention Colin Sexton when we talked about Odd Shopper. He hasn't played quite as many minutes so far this year as we were getting from him last year. I think that makes a lot of sense when you just add the rotation pieces Cleveland added in the offseason with Rubio, with Markkanen, with Evan Mobley. There's just more guys, Kevin Love coming back. There's more guys out there to take away minutes. But Isaac Okoro missed last game. He's out again tonight. He had been coming off the bench, taking some of those minutes from Sexton. And then last game with him out, you saw Sexton get back to 37.5 minutes. He has a 30% usage rate this year. He's not doing a whole lot in terms of assists or rebounds. That's to be expected when you're playing alongside some combination of Darius Garland, Ricky Rubio, Jared Allen, Kevin Love. Like, they're going to dominate the assists and the rebounds, but 30% usage rate for a $6,500 guy that I think is likely to play 36 minutes looks pretty good to me. Outside of that, I don't see a whole lot from the Cleveland side. For the Lakers, it's really just waiting on LeBron. If LeBron's in, I don't like a whole lot here. you've gotten the price tags coming up a little bit on Westbrook and Davis. LeBron is $100 less than George. He's $400 less than Durant. There's a lot of guys I would just rather go to than any Laker if LeBron is in. If LeBron's out, do what you can to swap to more Russell Westbrook, get some more Anthony Davis in there, get to some 4K Malik Monk. You know the drill by now. He's missed 2 games. Just go back to those guys. But if he's in, there's not a whole lot from the Lakers that I want.
Top tier option, top value option right now, especially with Bam expected to play and us not getting Deadman.
Yeah. Jokic, assuming he is in, is my favorite top tier option. Favorite value option right now is either Bruce Brown or Maxi Kleber, and neither one feels really good to say. I'll throw Nick Batum in there too.
All right. Beautiful. That'll do it for us. Thank you. 520 likes. I knew we'd get there. You guys are the best. Subscribe, hit the notification bell too if you want. Hit Adam up at Ship My Money DFS, myself at Lafayette_D. Guys, have a fantastic weekend and stick around. Greg and Eric coming up next, taking you all the way up to lock. This is the Deeper Dive presented by Yahoo. Peace.
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the NBA Live Before Lock show presented by Yahoo. I'm Eric Lindquist. Thank you so much to we have so much extra time here. No, we don't. We're 7 minutes in here. Such a great job by the guys before us. So I'm not even too worried about it. But as I'm coming in here, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you know when this and all the other content at Awesemo is going live. But of course, my guy who's going to be writing sidecar, giving you all the hard-hitting analysis, my dude at Ehrenberg DFS on the Twitter spheres. That's Greg Ehrenberg. Greg, how you doing, my guy?
Good. We've got this is really an ideal NBA size slate. We've got 7 games on DraftKings, 7 games on FanDuel, and then of course the 6-game Yahoo slate. They've acquiesced to our show schedule, and they have a 7:30 p.m. start time on the Eastern time, not Eric's fake time zone over there. So that we are going to have an extra 30 minutes after the show ends to talk about the Yahoo slate, but also if there's any kind of breaking news, and there's a lot of key players on the injury report, Nikola Jokic, LeBron James, most notably, if any of those players get ruled out in the 30 minutes after the slate locks, Eric and I will be sticking around. We'll be talking about that as well as the Yahoo stuff.
Yeah, so we have 7 games on the main slate, 6 games on the Yahoo slate. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you so much to them, not just for the sponsorship, but moving it so that you're able to get a full allotment of lineups into that $10. I'm able to play a couple here tonight. I'm, of course, in a new setup. Yes, everybody knows. I'm here at one Jordan Klein's amazing pad. We're going to be saying goodbye to Spags before he moves out to Pennsylvania here. Can't wait to see and hang out with him a little bit tonight. So one of our former colleagues doing some great stuff. So good to be able to see him tonight. But we have a lot of NBA to get to, so there's no time to dilly-dally. Greg, you kind of alluded to the Nikola Jokic news, but can you kind of go through a couple of the pieces of news you're keeping your eye on for this slate?
I mean, there's a lot of it. So here's all of the players who matter that are listed as questionable, most notably Nikola Jokic and LeBron James. Those are going to be the big ones. We've got Karis LeVert. He's questionable. And the reason that is really important, not just obviously him himself, Malcolm Brogdon's already been ruled out. So there's potential for a lot of value to open up in that backcourt for the Indiana Pacers. We've got Terry Rozier is questionable. Norman Powell is questionable. Josh Hart is questionable. Those are all key rotation players. They're going to impact some of the value we have available to us.
It's a lot of pieces. I mean, it's going to be you should probably, if you're playing any kind of volume, be sitting by your computer tonight, open a nice beverage, kind of maybe hang out. It's not a significant other's family night, like the days of yore when you didn't have late swap. If you have late swap available to you, it's a weapon. You need to be utilizing it today. That's just kind of the way that it goes. But we go position by position here on the Live Before Lock show. So let's kind of get ourselves into this a little bit. I'm excited for this slate. Let's start here on the top end of point guard and shooting guard. I guess we're kind of combining the positions like we have all week here. But on the top of our ownership on DraftKings right now, Bruce Brown Jr., James Harden, Jalen Brunson, Devontae Graham, lots of great options to kind of be turning to. Who are some of your highest owned players at the position?
Yeah, so, I mean, starting with the guards, and not necessarily one of my most rostered players overall, but I am getting to James Harden again today. I have sworn off James Harden. I thought I was done getting to this guy, but his price point, it's fallen to $9,600 over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, only $9,800. So I think now we've seen the price fall to a point where in a positive matchup against the Pacers, this should be a fairly up-paced matchup, 223-point total, which is actually the highest on the slate. I think we should see Harden at least see some sort of positive regression, and the free throw rate might not come back. I've adjusted for that at this point. I don't have him projected for that kind of crazy amount of fantasy points, just somewhere in the mid 40s. But that's still enough for me to get to him at this lower price point on FanDuel and DraftKings, or like mid 40s on FanDuel. DraftKings is still a little over 50. But I think there's something else we need to consider with James Harden. And even if the free throw rate doesn't come back, he's not making any of the shots from the field. And that is something that's going to bounce back to at least some extent. It's not like he's forgotten how to shoot threes because the referees aren't calling fouls quite as frequently. And if you look at his usage rate for the season, it's not like he's not taking any shots. He still has a 28.5% usage rate. The assists have been there for him. He's averaging 10.8 assists per game. So there is reason to be somewhat optimistic about James Harden. He's in about a third of my lineup. It's not like I'm playing him 50, 60% or anything, but I do think that he's a very good pay-up option. It's like this, slightly discounted.
Well, I just found out my camera is right there. So hello, everybody. I can now, I was getting some crap for not knowing my space from Tyler behind the virtual glass. Thank you so much to him. Hope he has a fantastic weekend, just being a goober and making fun of me. But I think that's great analysis. James Harden, we expect some positive regression in the shooting department. That is coming. The free throws, I don't know what to make of it. We had done a show the other day where under 5.5 free throws made was my favorite play on another site and thought that it was a really good prop to kind of utilize. Came to fruition. I believe you and I went 4-0. So I think we've got some good juju tonight. Looking forward to that Yahoo half hour afterwards, but I'm there. Unfortunately, the field's there too. I had like 10% at 2% is all that James Harden was on the other night, and was thinking that was still a really good spot to be invested. It was not a good spot to be invested, but on a 7-gamer here, I think he just makes a really, really good spend up. So I'm going to be looking that direction as well. As we move down, Fred VanVleet, we've got Chris Duarte, we've got some of these other options that are popping up in kind of the mid-level of ownership here. I'm kind of finding myself landing over on DraftKings quite a bit in some of the evening games so that I can account to news. Late swap is a big part of my process. Again, I'm going to be on about living my life a little bit tonight, so I want to be careful, but I'm going to have enough lineups where I'm able to monitor and I'd still get a pretty good allotment in there. But what are you kind of planning to account for news tonight?
Yeah, so I have exposure to Russell Westbrook now. I have exposure to LeBron James, and that's going to give me flexibility to be able to swap off some of these guys should the news breaks with LeBron. I tend to think he's going to play, but I'm not totally sure about that. Like I thought that Anthony Davis was going to sit the other day. He ended up sitting. Are you getting too much of Russell Westbrook right now? Because I don't have really tons. I have let's see, like 20% right now. What is tons? What
45%. So I'm in your regard, 25%. So 45% right now. Russell Westbrook is going to be my second highest owned stud, next to a guy that we'll talk about here in a second, Luka Doncic, who I don't expect last night to ever happen again. And if it does, God forbid, I'm not going to make any money. But Russell Westbrook on that top end, I just think it's such a great spot to kind of play towards. They're going to bounce back here against Cleveland. I don't think that there's any kind of way about it. This Lakers team has not been good in the early going of the season. An overtime win against San Antonio, a loss after being up 20 to OKC. I expect positive regression for Russell Westbrook. He's going to be somebody who 64, 59 and a half. I mean, that's what you're looking at without LeBron James on the floor. Anthony Davis, any kind of limitations, I don't really kind of expect. I think he'll be just fine here in this spot, but he's doing a lot for this Lakers team right now, filling up the box score in the same way that he did in Washington before it. When you take LeBron off the floor, I mean, we're looking at 13 assists, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, 10 rebounds, 13 assists, 6 rebounds. These are gigantic numbers. I see no way about it. If he's going to be sub 5% and everybody wants to go after Harden, and I'm a little bit above the field on Harden as well. I think it's a pretty good stars and scrubs slate still for me. I think Russell Westbrook makes one of the best tournament plays on the slate.
So I'm going to ask you though, because the ownership's going to change a ton if LeBron ends up getting ruled out. Are you going to be playing Westbrook even if LeBron is in? Because people in the chat, I saw some say you guys are crazy for playing Westbrook. I'm only playing Westbrook under some exposure of Westbrook just right now. If LeBron gets ruled out, I'm going to be swapping off him if LeBron ends up playing. But are you playing Westbrook irregardless?
So, okay, that is the right question, is whether I'm playing Westbrook regardless, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a lot of Nikola Jokic in the event that he's ruled in. And so for me, late swap is the name of the game when it comes to NBA DFS. 10:30 on the East Coast, 7:30 out here on the West Coast. That's the lock time of that game. Having Russell Westbrook in your utility spot, having anybody in that late night hammer in the utility spot gives you the ability to change your lineups on a whim. If that Nikola Jokic news, I'm hoping it waits until about 6:45, 6:50, enough time where I can kind of make some knowledgeable decisions. But, I don't know when it's going to come out, but I know that I'm going to already be jamming a lot of Denver players way above what the field is here at the moment, and giving myself as much late swappability, if that's a correct word of usage. That's kind of what I want to be going to. Yeah, Tyler, late swappability. That's the word. But I'm looking forward to finding as many spots to get to Denver players, as many spots to get to Lakers in the event that you don't have LeBron James as I possibly can. And Russell Westbrook needs to be a part of that.
Yeah, I think fair enough. Once again, I think it's certainly something we want to give ourselves the flexibility to. And I think that something that kind of gets lost sometimes in NBA projections is it's only assuming one outcome. And it's really hard to project for multiple outcomes. And we don't know if LeBron James is going to play or not. But I think we should be prepared that either outcome could happen. And we have the ability to late swap. But once again, I'm not going to like Russell Westbrook if LeBron James ends up playing.
Absolutely agreed. And yeah, you're going to get off of him. I doubt I can get off of every single share that I have, but I'm okay getting to 10, 15% of Westbrook in that event. So at the onset, when you're building lineups, have the entire slate in the front of your mind. You need to be thinking about the entire slate and what you plan to do. I plan on playing a lot of Nikola Jokic if he gets ruled in, but let's move our way down the board at guard on DraftKings. Are there any low-owned plays that you're getting to much, much more than the field then?
Let me just refresh the ownership to make sure I'm looking at the most recent numbers, because I don't want it to be something like, hey, I really like this guy who's low owned, and then it's like he's actually 20% or something like that. So refresh the ownership. The last time we got ownership was 10 minutes ago. So that was before I had refreshed most recently. So Let me see some of my guard exposures and see if there's anybody here who I'm getting to a decent amount of that doesn't really have much ownership. Let's see. So the most recent, I'm gonna read off some of the most popular plays to start. So the chalk at the guard position right now, Bruce Brown, 41% is by far the most popular guard play on DraftKings. There's not really anybody else, though, that's crazy popular. Actually, Harden's kind of surprisingly popular now, 26% on DK. We've got Bruce Brown at 41%. There's nobody else other than James Harden over 22%. So I don't really think we have to be too concerned about the ownership right now, even with it being a smaller slate. So that's kind of a nice thing to look at. But Tyler Hero, I think, makes sense as a lower owned guard play, only projected for 4.7% ownership. And Tyler Hero so far this year, even with Kyle Lowry expected to be back in the mix today, we saw earlier in the season when Tyler Hero came off the bench, he still had some massive fantasy games. 43 fantasy points against the Bucks. He had a 44 fantasy point game against the Indiana Pacers. So Tyler Hero is still going to get his run, whether Kyle Lowry is in or out, even though he's expected to play at this point, like I said before. And still, I think Tyler Hero, when he's on the court, he's going to be shooting. His usage rate so far this year, 36.1%, 31.8, 24.1, 31.9. So Tyler Hero, from an upside perspective, sub 5% ownership. I'm overweight for that number.
I love that number. I love that play in general. I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm making some stands. Once again, Cole Anthony is somebody that I think is kind of at a different role with this basketball team this season. Somebody that on even a DraftKings, again, I'm not playing much on FanDuel. We're not even going to get into that today, but I'm looking forward to playing quite a bit of Cole Anthony as well. I think that kind of makes sense at the guard position, somebody that I'm higher on than the field. There's guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 6,700 feels like a crazy overpay. But up against Sacramento, I think everybody becomes viable. And we got to be looking at kind of the pace and some of the game environments. That's somebody that I'm over the field on. There's a number of plays on the 7-gamer that I think really stick out that are under 10% that you can definitely get some exposure to. Reggie Jackson at 14.5%. That's still not enough, I think, for his role on this basketball team. Looking at the Clippers having a nice bounce back spot tonight after just poo-pooing the bet against Cleveland. No way around it. But anything else at the guard position that's really kind of sticking out to you?
I think we should talk about Jalen Brunson because he's going to be relatively popular relative to the slate currently projected for 20% ownership, a number I don't have an issue with. I thought the Mavericks minutes yesterday were a little bit difficult to predict just because they started Reggie Bullock, which we were not expecting. They'd said earlier in the day that Maxi Kleber was going to start. Then all of a sudden the lineup comes out, 5 minutes, 10 minutes before lock, whatever it was. And it's, hey, we've got Reggie Bullock randomly starting, and they still kind of rode their bench. Like, they still rode their bench a lot in that game. So Jalen Brunson ended up playing 30 minutes. He had a 23.8% usage rate off the bench. He had a massive fantasy game. So far, his fantasy results this year have been really strong. He scored at least 26 fantasy points in 3 of 4 games. The last 2 games, which I think is notable because Kristaps Porzingis was out for one of these games and only played 14 minutes due to injury in the other one. Over 35 fantasy points in each of those for Jalen Brunson. So it does look like he's somebody who stands to gain a ton in terms of playing time and usage with Porzingis out.
Absolutely does. Did you end up with Kleba? I was thinking about you last night, and we have our group chat. I was like, I should just ask him. How much Kleba did you end up with last night?
I don't remember off the top. I mean, I got my ass kicked last night. Kleber was not the reason why, though. Like, I was a little bit overweight to Kleber, I think, but I ended up being underweight to Jalen Brunson because he was really popular and I like him more today than yesterday. Actually, oddly, he's less expensive today than he was yesterday, which also is one of the reasons to get to him. But then also he's projected for less ownership today than yesterday as well. But what was I didn't have exposure to Morant yesterday. That was something that really hurt me. And then obviously Luka sucking.
And Aaron Holiday sucking and becoming value last second. And I jammed a lot of him, but that's the game we play. We try to take advantage of late news, and sometimes you get burned. And that's kind of what happened with that. Reggie Bullock, it was I could have left or took him, but it definitely got me off of my Kleba exposure, which was not a good thing to get off of there. But that kind of does it at the guard position. Anything else for you?
No, I just want to bring up because somebody said that Lowry is questionable today. Lowry was questionable today, but Lowry has since been upgraded to playing, so that's no longer a concern. Earlier in the day, we had just to give an update, the Miami Heat had listed Bam Adebayo and Kyle Lowry as questionable. Both of them are playing, though.
All right, cool. Caris LeVert just got ruled out, too, as well.
There we go.
So, perfect timing to kind of get that as we make our way over. But one thing I want to talk to you guys about quick is $29.95. That is the cost of admission right now for an Awesemo Plus weekly pass. But it's going to be one of the best tools that you can possibly get in the industry, specifically the boom bust tool for NBA. Our projections are free today. So I would definitely, the ownership projections are, excuse me. So we have the ownership projections, player projections. All of this stuff is available to you right now for 25% off using the promo code NBA Live Before Lock. I'm telling you, I don't know what else I need to tell you. I mean, it's the best situation you can possibly get into, joining the Awesemo.com community, getting into the premium Discord, having the ability to talk to people around the clock, whether it's Greg, myself, anybody else. We've got Loco in there, keeping track of news, helping everybody out, leading up to lock every single day. You want to be a part of this community, so join it. NBA Live Before Lock, 25% off for the Awesemo Plus Platinum package. And then weekly package, $16.95 or $4.95 for the weekly package. But 25% off is a pretty good number to be getting there. And we'll get to the Yahoo promotion we have going. That is the best we have ever ran. Looking forward to chatting about them in a little bit, but we've got a lot to get to here still. We got 37 minutes before lock. Let's jump over to the forward position. So
we're not going to talk about Caris LeVert.
Okay, we can react to it. We can talk about Caris.
Yeah, that's going to be, to me, that's a pretty pivotal point of the slate because we've got TJ McConnell. I was playing TJ McConnell before, but not a massive amount of him. He was about appropriately priced on FanDuel and DraftKings, but now I think he's a little bit underpriced now that Caris LeVert is out because there was somebody else to handle some of the ball handling duties in the point guard run without when we thought there was a chance that Caris LeVert played. Now that he's out, TJ McConnell, look at the other guards that are on this roster. Unless they want to give Brad Wanamaker big minutes, Malcolm Brogdon is out, Caris LeVert is out. They just don't have other playmakers here. Chris Duarte mostly plays off the ball. So I think this is now a pretty good spot for TJ McConnell under 6,000 on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Is that a price that is too expensive for you, or do you like getting to him?
No, I was already getting to him. I was at 20%. I didn't think that there was anything special to talk about with him. And now getting Caris LeVert out of there with Brogdon joining the fray there. I mean, there are a lot of minutes up for grabs. You have Brad Wanamaker sitting in that backcourt. That's kind of an interesting talking point for me at 3,500. I know it's not comfortable, but this is a 7-gamer. This isn't a 10-gamer. I don't know if we have a ton of value that I really want to be clicking at sub 4K at the moment. I mean, Kleba is somebody that everybody's going to want to click on, and we'll get to him here in a second. But I think that even kind of becomes interesting. How many minutes are you going to be allotting for somebody like him coming in a backup role or a presumed backup role?
For Brad Wanamaker?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be starting, obviously.
No. So Wanamaker, no, I'm pretty sure TJ McConnell is going to start. I mean, we'll see when the starting lineup comes out, but he hasn't played all that much this year. Brad Wanamaker played 2 minutes on opening night. Then he was a DNP in back-to-back games, played less than 20 minutes last game. And the reason he even got that run was not just the Brogdon injury, but also the game was a blowout. So I don't think we're going to see too many minutes from Brad Wanamaker. I think like 22 is a reasonable expectation from him. So if you want to go and play some shares of him in a large field GPP, okay, but I'm not going to be doing it.
I'm going to make a rule just in case. I'm not going to have McConnell in the lineups that he's in. I'll have like 1 or 2 shares in 40 total lineups. I think that's about appropriate. Just a little bit of a hedge towards the opportunity that can actually present itself. Not that Brad Wanamaker can be the most exciting guy, but I mean, his situation that he had in with the Celtics is a little different than the one he has here in Indiana. I think that there are some minutes up for grabs here. So I'm gonna get to a little bit of him there, but does this change the way you look at Sabonis as well? I mean, how much Sabonis do you think you're going to get to in this spot now?
All right. So looking at the numbers this year with Malcolm Brogdon off the court for the Indiana Pacers, we've seen Sabonis. Well, Sabonis, it's actually really hard to there's nothing to draw from here. Sabonis has played a total of, how many minutes is this? I can't even find him here. Okay, he's played 48 minutes without Malcolm Brogdon on the court this year. In those minutes, he has scored 41 DraftKings points per 36 minutes. It hasn't really changed his production all that much. Let me look at last year to see if he was any different last year with Brogdon off the court. Yeah. So let's see what happens when I pull up the numbers last year. So last year, when Brogdon was off the court, Sabonis scored 50 DraftKings points per 36 minutes, which still is not all that much different from his rates when we have Brogdon on the court. So actually, 1.2% less usage rate for Sabonis without Brogdon last year, but his assist rate went up a little bit, which makes sense, right? They need another facilitator on the court, and Brogdon's there, but I don't think this massively changes Sabonis. I was getting to Sabonis a little bit already. It's a matchup that I think against the Nets does make sense to stack because it does have the highest total on the slate. So Sabonis in play for me, but not any different than what he looked like before.
So everybody hit the like button because apparently is that a thing we're going to do? Jordan Klein, he's going to shotgun if we get to 1,000 likes. Oh, we got to get to 1,000 likes. We got to see Jordan Klein shotgun on stream. Can't we do that? No, we can't do that. We have a sponsor half hour afterwards. We can't do that. Jordan, you're fine. Enjoy your place. This is a joke. How nice this place is. Whatever. It must be nice to be Jordan Klein. There's no doubt about it. But let's talk about the rest of the forward. Well, the entire forward position here now that we've touched on that Indiana news. On the top end here on DraftKings specifically, you're looking at a number of guys on the top end that you could be paying up for. Kevin Durant, somebody that I know you shied away against, but considering James Harden's getting double the ownership of Kevin Durant, I think that's enticing. Paul George has been fantastic in the early going at 10K, finally put up a dud there at 33.5 up against Cleveland. But I mean, they just shot the ball so terribly as a team. So I'm not going to kind of be looking at that. Still maybe an intriguing option, but then you're running into the LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Domantas Sabonis here. Anybody on the top end of forward you really want to be paying up for?
Whoa, boy, I don't know why that messed up my lineup so much. Whatever it was, I just tried to update my FanDuel lineups, and
100% Wanamaker.
I've never seen this happen before. No, it gave me the same exact lineup. Here's why: because I was adjusting the Pacers, and I only had the Pacers selected, and that's why that messed up my lineup so much. So, all right.
Oh, the sea is silent.
Yeah, there we go. Rerun this again, and then we'll see what's up. But yeah, anyway, that aside, with my swapping faux pas, we're still plenty of time, 31 minutes. I'm not like Eric Lindquist here and going to be struggling to get my lineups in up against the buzzer
Greg.
here.
Easy, Greg.
Hey, I know you've probably been doing a little bit of drinking today. This could be
I literally just opened a seltzer now. That's my first one. Ready to go.
I don't believe you.
Just pulled it. You don't believe me. I was going to say the entire chat thought that I was drinking the other day. I was like, come on now. Literally just started.
Pay up options at forward. I haven't really paid all the way up that much. I mean, I guess Jimmy Butler is a sensible pay up option, but I went cheap for the most part at forward. We've got Nick Batum as a viable value play, Luke Kennard as a viable forward play. So Jimmy Butler's the guy I'm getting to the most as a pay up option, but that's still only around 20%. It's not like there's one guy like Kevin Durant or anything like that I'm getting to at a really high number. I'm mostly saving money at the forward spot. Are you doing anything different there?
Well, I mean, Domantas Sabonis now at 9,400, Jimmy Butler 8,700. I had quote unquote spend ups in that spot. I think that makes some sense. Anthony Davis as well, with no LeBron James here. He's probable. I'm willing to try to take some shots on that a little bit above the field to 15%. I currently have 25%, but part of that is just some of the flexibility that allows me to get to Jokic in the event that I need to get to Jokic at 10-7. I have, a minimum of one Laker. I have a minimum of one player from the other night games where I'm getting into all of my lineups. So I'll have some swappability to be able to get to Jokic or react to that news, however it ends up. I just find late swap to be the most useful thing that you can do in NBA DFS to really give yourself an edge. So use it. And I'm going to just kind of be late stacking a lot of my lineups. And that's just a personal preference. It doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't be playing players from the earlier game, but I just always find it long-term to be profitable reacting to late news. So for me, getting to more players at the forward position where Anthony Davis is there, Domantas Sabonis is great. I wish he wasn't in the early window. And if we get that Jokic news while we're doing the Yahoo show, I think it makes some sense to react to that in the event that he's in, maybe getting to a little bit more Sabonis because people will have forever to be able to play Jokic into lineups. We still have 29 minutes, maybe not terribly long, but in the event that we don't have that news, I'm just waiting for it.
I have somebody I prefer to that I actually prefer to Sabonis in the front court for the Pacers. And that's Miles Turner. Just looking at some of the rates for, and this is going to be a little bit different. Miles Turner is only a center on DraftKings, but he has power forward and center eligibility on FanDuel. But looking at the rates last year for the Pacers, the player who benefited the most when Malcolm Brogdon was off the court was Miles Turner. Miles Turner, 3.9% usage increase when Malcolm Brogdon was not on the court. He scored 0.16 more fantasy points per 36 minutes. per minute when Brogdon was off the court. So overall last year, Miles Turner per 36 minutes without Brogdon on court, he scored 41.17 DraftKings points. And you look at him at a depressed price point on DraftKings and FanDuel today, he's the pacer that I'm actually getting to the most right now, which I didn't think was going to be the case, except just looking at the numbers from last year, I kind of think that's what makes sense. Obviously, the foul trouble is always a concern for Miles Turner. He's an extreme boom bust option. But for tournaments, I really don't mind that. In most recent run of ownership, Miles Turner's only projected for 5% ownership on DraftKings. Over on FanDuel, projected for 10%. So that's actually somewhere I'd really like to go as a forward on FanDuel.
5,400 on DK. What do you make of his minutes? Why does Indiana hate him?
Because he gets in foul. I mean, it's not they hate it. He just gets in foul trouble a lot.
He had zero fouls, 22 minutes against Toronto. And I know that was a blowout. He had 3 fouls, but 14 minutes against Milwaukee, 10-point game.
That was foul trouble also.
So just 3 fouls, and then they're like, hey, we're not going to put you back on the floor the entire second half.
So what happened was he got in foul trouble, and then they were down by a lot, and they were getting more floor spacing on the court. So they went with there was a point in the game where they went with Patadze, but then they also went with O'Shea Brissett for long stretches just because they needed more 3-point shooting on the court, and it was just compounded. When Miles Turner gets into early foul trouble, then Patadze has to come in and play center, and then they're just behind by a bunch of points. So like, okay, we need to get some shooting on the floor, and there just wasn't time for Miles Turner down the stretch of that game. But it's not like we haven't seen the upside from him. His box score this year is wild because just take the first 3 games of the season. He scores 27 fantasy points, 63, then 12. Those are his first 3 games of the season. You know, it's certainly a high variance play, but it's kind of what you like in GPPs for a lower owned player.
It's true. All right. You convinced me. 5,400. The problem about the center position is that you have a number of options, notwithstanding Jonas Valanciunas, which I saw somebody got really excited about Jonas Valanciunas too. We just got to settle down a little bit there. Let's go through the rest of the forward position, though. Some of the more popular plays over on DraftKings today, obviously, you can play Bruce Brown Jr. at a forward position. Nicholas Batum is a fascinating talking point. 4K. I said we didn't have a ton of value sub 4K, other than Kleba, 3,300, who's garnering a ton of rostership. What are you kind of looking at for some of these other very, very popular options? OG Anunoby, Michael Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., etc.
Yeah, so Nick Batum is one that I really like a lot. He is the cheap forward that I'm getting to the most over on DraftKings. 4,000 price tag, started last game in place of Marcus Morris, and I expect that to be the case again. So last game, he plays 32 minutes, only a 21.5% usage rate, but still scores 27.5 DraftKings points, which is a pretty good result relative to his price tag, and he's still able to fill up the box score in a number of ways. So you don't necessarily need the points from Nick Batum. He's going to be a guy who could get, a block, a steal, 2 or 3 assists, 3 or 4 rebounds, hit a 3 or 2. So just add all that together, and he's a fairly safe play at his price point with a little bit of upside because he's able to do so much on the box score.
All right. Yeah, I think he's a good play at 4K. I'm not going to go nuts with him. I think 25% looking at that as well. I just kind of put a cap on him here because that's what you do when you're on a show and you're trying to react to it a little bit. Aaron Gordon becomes extremely, extremely interesting. He'll probably be my highest owned piece of value. Again, by having some late stack lineups, Nicholas Batum, part of the appeal of him, he's in that late section of games and you're able to kind of pivot and make some moves around. Kleba will be in my lineups quite a bit as well, just to have another kind of piece there. I mean, I'm just getting to so much late value right now, and I'll be able to adjust to the news. I know you guys are probably sick about hearing it, but it's the most important part of the slate for me. So I'm just going to keep harping on it. The rest of the value pieces that we're looking at, Scotty Barnes is somebody I thought I would get to, not on DraftKings, 6,100. I think he was looking a little bit more appealing on other sites. Brandon Ingram, just a little bit more expensive than what I would want to get to, as much as I love that guy and think that he still has an upside at any tag. But is there anybody else on the lower owned end that you're finding that you're getting to a lot more than the field?
Let's see. So lower owned. Once again, I'm going to refresh the ownership, see if we've had any changes, because at least last I refreshed, it had, there we go. This keeps happening, by the way. There's times I'm like, I feel like we should get an ownership refresh, and then I refresh and updated 30 seconds ago.
There you go.
30 seconds ago, let's scroll down and see. First, I want to circle back on the Sabonis, Miles Turner, those guys. So right now, Miles Turner, with the most recent news, still projected for sub 10% ownership on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Turner actually become a little bit more popular now, 16.6%. I didn't think he was somebody the field was going to be on. But it looks like the field is hip to the fact that he had that big usage bump last year when Malcolm Brogdon was off the court. But lower owned forwards, so we're saying like sub 10%.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Sub 12, 15% if you really want to.
All right. Well, this is going to be dependent on Terry Rozier being out, and I believe we still haven't gotten news on Terry Rozier.
No.
Yeah, Terry Rozier still listed as questionable. I think it's another good spot to go back to Gordon Hayward. He had a pretty big game last time out, and I think that we should see more of that from him going forward. So Gordon Hayward, the minutes for him have been massive, and there's certain players, Gordon Hayward being one of them. We're never sure when they're going to be healthy or how long they're going to be healthy for, but we know that they're going to be healthy at least for the first couple weeks of the season. The minutes workload for Gordon Hayward the last two games, 38 and 37 minutes last game for Hayward, 22.2% usage rate, scores over 40 fantasy points in those minutes. And once again, a guy who could do a little bit of everything on the box rate, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, a couple of steals, a block last game. He's too cheap for me on both FanDuel and DraftKings. He has small forward, power forward eligibility on DK. So Gordon Hayward is somebody sub 10% ownership that I think makes sense to be overweight to in tournaments.
He was a great play last time out too. I think on DraftKings, especially where the rostership wasn't there, on FanDuel, it certainly was. And he got there in a pronounced way. Miles Bridges has been kind of revelatory this season, the best version of Miles Bridges that we've seen yet. But it's still just too cheap of a tag. So I'm with you on Gordon Hayward, sub 7K. I still think that he's an all right little play there, depending on that news as well. We'll kind of wait for it. We've got 22 minutes before lock. I see Gary Trent down there. I'm getting to quite a bit as well. But as I said, I'm looking at some of the late value. That's also, did we have the conversation about Bruce Brown yet?
We've not had the conversation about Bruce Brown. The only thing I brought up is in the ownership projections. He is projected to be a massive chalk today, which
he is the most massive piece of chalk, and I won't. Yeah,
that's never failed though, right? Has Bruce Brown chalk gone boiler this year at any point? It's only worked, right?
I don't even know what to say. Yeah, just shake your head. It's like Lee Trevino and Happy Gilmore. A little bit of that.
So I can't. I assume you were shaking your head, but I can't because I've got this new microphone set up, right? I've got
and you've got the camera over on the other side, or
so I've got the big black phallic object in front of my face. But if I turn at all, it messes up all my audio settings. But so as is, there's been a lot of echo in my room recently.
Can I get the eye movement? Can you do it without turning your head? Can you?
I'm not messing up anything. I want to make Chris Karen happy. And I have to stay in this exact position to eliminate the amount of echo that's in my room.
So good. Oh my God. All right. Bruce Brown. The main reason that I don't like Bruce Brown is how much Bruce Brown do you want in your lineups if Nikola Jokic is ruled out? I don't want any. I don't want any Bruce Brown at 40%. That's really the talking point. It's not that I don't like Bruce Brown. He's 3,800. He's a cheap piece. And you can also play him and certainly adjust to some of the Denver lineups. But there are so many guys, depending on how that starting lineup comes out, that you're getting at nothing ownership, like absolutely nothing ownership in that late window based on all of the news that's yet to come, specifically with Denver, that I don't want to use up roster spots. And so Bruce Brown, I'm less than half of the field right now, and I'm just fine with that on DraftKings.
I have 15% exposure to Bruce Brown now. Now, with that said, play Bruce Brown in cash games. If you're playing cash games, say you're playing Bruce Brown, he's one of the best value plays. And if we find out that Jokic and LeBron both end up playing, I'm going to be really upset that I only have 15% Bruce Brown, but I'm just kind of making a wager here, which is, all right, I don't know if either of them are going to be out, but let's just quick numbers game. Mm-hmm. Let's just say it's true 50-50 odds that LeBron James and Nikola Jokic are questionable right now. That means that there's a 75% chance that one of them gets ruled out, which opens up a lot of value plays that I would want to get into my lineups instead of Bruce Brown. So that's the way I'm looking at it, is I think one of them get ruled out. I don't know which one, but I'm hoping at least one of them do. And then I'll have some value plays I'll get to, because it's going to be a thing where if I play a bunch of Bruce Brown and then there's value that opens up, I'm going to be like, oh, crap, I can't believe all these spots locked up for Bruce Brown. But then the inverse happens as well. But like I said, just doing the math on and playing the numbers game, I think it's more likely one of those guys gets ruled out than that they both end up playing.
Stop looking at the slate as its own individual entity and start looking at it if it plays out 100 times. And depending on how the news reacts, played out 100 times with Bruce Brown being the best piece of value and Nikola Jokic, being ruled in. Play it 100 times with Nikola Jokic ruled out. Every single time that he's ruled out in those kind of situations, you're looking at phenomenal value that's way underowned. I think that over a long period of time that you're playing DFS, you're better off reacting to the news than you are to not. just the way that it goes. I think you're dead on with that as well. So that's kind of the gist of it. I say that all knowing Maxi Kleber in the evening window. How much of him are you getting to, considering he was your boy last night?
But he was not my boy last night. He would have been my boy had he actually ended up starting, which I would have certainly preferred. But I don't really like Maxi Kleber all that much. By the way, this is a brutal spot for the Dallas Mavericks on the tail end of a back-to-back in Denver. That is arguably the worst game environment you could possibly play in for basketball. It's back-to-back situation. That's always fatigue. But then you also have to go on the road and play in Denver, which is the toughest road environment to play in because of the altitude. So that's a concern for me. If we find out that Maxi Kleber is starting today, maybe I'll feel a little bit better about his minutes, but I definitely have a little bit of concern that we're certainly not going to see the same Maxi Kleber that showed up yesterday, but I think there is a pretty good chance that we see a step back from him. I think that if you're playing in cash games, once again, I don't have an issue getting to Kleber in cash games. He is currently only 3,300, which that isn't going to change. He's projected for, actually, most recent ownership update, he's really low owned. So I'm going to have to, he's only projected for 13.5% ownership. I thought he was going to be higher than that. So erase that. 13.5% ownership, that's fine for Kleber. He was something I was looking to to undercut, but not when his ownership is actually going to be this low.
I'm shocked that it's this low. I think it's going to be higher. I
tend to think it's going to be higher also, but I mean,
he
just the
broke
fact
the
that
slate yesterday, and he was like 20% not starting. I got to be thinking he's going to be higher owned.
Yeah, I do too. But I don't. Like, what would you say is, if I was to say over under 24.5% ownership for Kleber, would you say over under that number?
I'm going to say I'll go over. I'll go over.
Yeah, I'm just not really sure where to peg his ownership. As long as it stays projected for 13%, though, that's a number I have to be overweight to.
Is this happening right now? What's he doing? Is this real life?
I just turn my head. I turn my head out of habit. Is he naked? He's probably naked, isn't he?
No, it's just Jordan Klein walking in to grab a drink. Jordan Klein walking back. Don't worry, producer Jordan Klein behind the glass is now in real life in front of me. So there we go.
Which, by the way, he always doesn't want to appear on camera. Is this going to be? This could be like the.
See, he wants to appear on camera when it's a bit. Like, he doesn't want to appear on camera when it's actually him having to talk or be sensible.
This is going to turn into the Urban Meyer situation. Do you remember that Urban Meyer's interview he did last year where he was in like an RV and some guy was walking around without a shirt on in the background? Yeah. That's certainly about to happen. By the way, we did get a super chat here from Soldope1234. Said, thoughts on FanDuel for Boban. I don't have Boban in my player pool. And favorite cheap small forward, not Batum. So this is a FanDuel specific question.
FanDuel favorite small forward cheap. There's not really anybody super cheap that I'm in love with there. Franz Wagner's 4,900. I think that's fine, but we're looking like under 40. What is that? Not Batum.
So, Robert Covington's only 4,300, and he is absolutely stuck this year. But I haven't projected for over 20 fantasy points, which is a fairly low mark to get to. And if you look at Covington's numbers this year, number one, he's not making the last two games. He's made a total of one field goal. That's something that's going to regress a little bit positively. Also, he's always been a guy who's racked up some defensive stats. So this kind of salary on Robert Covington, I always like to look at historical pricing for players, and he finished last year priced over 6,000. So I don't think this 4,200 or 4,300 price tag is going to hold. So Robert Covington, to me, I think makes a lot of sense as a cheap forward.
As do I. Robert Covington's just fine. The other night, I was actually pretty interested in him, but I digress. Let's get a couple things out of the way here before we head over to center, round this thing out. And then we've got the half-hour show for Yahoo coming up afterwards. Very excited to be talking that with you. Of course, Yahoo pushed their slate back half an hour. They are not involving that first 7 o'clock game. You don't have to worry about Orlando or Toronto. We're just jumping right to that 6th game. We're looking forward to talking Yahoo with you. But if you are a new user, you got to jump over there right now and take advantage of this offer we have going. It's the best we've ever ran in the history of our site, where you new users, you put $10 or more onto Yahoo, you deposit into any paid contest period, whatever you want, the 50 cent, the $1, the $10 with us, whatever you want to do. And you will get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum completely free to you. That is every sport, everything we have behind the paywall. NFL Week 8. I'm telling you also, Yahoo has the best NFL Week 8 contest in the entire industry. That spooky $20 that they have going, $1 million, $200K of overlay. I mean, that's a negative 25% management fee. It doesn't get any better than that. So go over there, deposit into Yahoo $10 or more, get that free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, and looking forward to seeing you behind the paywall soon. All righty, we'll be talking with them again here in 13 minutes, but let's jump over to center and round this out. And we'll have a little bit of time for questions at the end. For me, we're waiting. Did we get the Bam Adebayo news? Because, I mean, he got downgraded to questionable. Did we get that?
Bam Adebayo and Kyle Lowry are both playing.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. Somebody in chat had just said that was going back and forth. I didn't know if I had missed something. Again, new setup. I have 48 monitors. I have a light on me. I don't know what's going on, but I'm having fun doing it. For me, the conversation begins and ends at center for me with Nikola Jokic, depending on that news. I want to get to an absolute ton of him. He will be the best tournament play on the entire slate in the event he gets ruled in late. What do you think about him specifically if he's in? And obviously, we don't have to talk about him if he's out.
Yeah, so I have 15% exposure to Nikola Jokic right now. And I think there's a couple things to consider here. First of all, I think it's reasonable to think he's 50-50 to either play or not play. And I know that people are going to say, hey, Nikola Jokic never misses games. Well, guess what? He sat out half of last game after he got hurt. So I think the idea that this injury is something to be a total non-concern, that can't be the case because we've already seen him miss some time in terms of actually playing with this injury. So I do have some exposure to him just because I want him there as a placeholder, but it's for a couple of reasons. Number one, if he plays, like you said, he's a good play. But if he's out, we have a lot of spots to pivot to in this late game. We've got Dallas playing. So there is Luka Doncic as a pay-up option. In Portland, there's Damian Lillard as a pay-up option. In the Lakers game, we have the LeBron James situation. So if you're holding some roster spots for guys like LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, who are questionable, there's a lot of flexibility to pivot, and I think there's going to be places to go. So I'm getting to, like I said, I'm getting to 15% Nikola Jokic right now. I think he's a good guy to have a placeholder on. How much I actually end up with him is going to depend on what happens with the late injury news. If he ends up getting ruled in, I'm going to want to up my exposure to him. If he gets ruled out, I'm going to take him out of my player pool and get to guys like Aaron Gordon a whole bunch. Michael Porter Jr. is going to make more sense. I think where we need to kind of try to figure out, though, is who do you think is the best value play on the cheap end if there is no Jokic?
If there's no Jokic, I'm going to have to wait for that starting lineup because it becomes a little bit of a disaster to figure out. But we're going to have Kleba, we're going to have Batum, we're going to have a number of those roster spots. So I'm not panicked on it, especially because those spots are going to be forward utility for almost all of those plays. So I'm not going to be full-blown panic on it. My assumption as of right now would be J. Michael Green would end up in the starting rotation. We've seen him have some of those starts here in the event that you're going to get him out. I mean, God forbid it's a bowl situation. We talked about that on the NBA Slate Starter podcast last night.
It won't be.
It won't. I know it won't, but there were some random spot starts from him last season. If you can remember, I would say that probably Ryan and I went hook, line, and sinker for that more than the average human being because he's just a fun, exciting guy to be watching on a floor. He's 3K, but it's going to be J. Michael Green. It's going to be Jeff Green. I think those are kind of the two that you're going to be looking at the most. But Aaron Gordon is the guy that I would want to get the most exposure to. His role's completely changed since coming over from the Magic to Denver. They're not asking him to be ball dominant. They're not asking him to be anything crazy. But at 5K, he's a little bit cheaper. He's $900 off of Will Barton over on DK. He's $1,500 off Michael Porter Jr. And I know everybody is going to jam Michael Porter Jr. Maybe they're not because they won't have a roster spot, and I'm going to have a ton of them available to try to get to some of him. But Aaron Gordon at 5K would substantially vault up my board as my favorite value piece in the event you get no Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, that would certainly be somebody who make a lot of sense. And then on the very cheap end, JaMychal Green, you mentioned him. I think that he would end up starting, and his minutes are a little misleading last game because once again, Nikola Jokic played the first half. He gets injured right before halftime. JaMychal Green starts the second half, but it's a game where number one Denver ended up losing by a dozen points, and JaMychal Green got ejected in that game. So there was some mitigating factors that made it so that his minutes were not greater than what they otherwise could have been. Still ended up playing 19 minutes, but if Jokic is out, I think it's pretty reasonable to expect we get something like 28 to 32 minutes from Green.
If you get ejected, it's hard to get minutes, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Hashtag analysis. Love it. All right. My guy, if I'm going to be playing anybody in this early window, I'm going to be playing Jonas Valanciunas. I love this guy today. 8,500. You want to talk about new roles, new teams? Well, Jonas Valanciunas is getting minutes for the first time ever. And as far as a per minute fantasy point producer, going back to his days in Memphis, it was always a question of minutes. It was never a question of whether or not he was going to be a meaningful fantasy producer. I mean, we're looking at 1.25 kind of being the staple number for him as a career. I think that that's kind of the number that I'm expecting going forward. You put him in for 35 minutes, and it is almost impossible for me not to get over the field on 20%. What do you feel about him today on this slate?
Let's see. So let me look up Jonas. I'm getting to Valanciunas. I have him at right around 20% on FanDuel. DraftKings, same number. It's about a fair price tag for me. Now, I get that if you look at his overall production recently, it's been sky high, and I think it's going to continue to be really significant as long as Zion Williamson is out. Because the big issue we've had with Jonas Valanciunas in the past has always been we just don't know what his minutes are going to look like. Great points per minute fantasy producer, but a lot of times he was in foul trouble. There was teams that were a little hesitant to play in big minutes. Seems like a different situation for him this year in New Orleans, 36, 39, 36 minutes in the last two games. But I also think the price has caught up with him now. He's 8,500 on DK. On FanDuel, he's 8,200. So once again, I mean, he's one of my 7 or 8 most rostered centers, but it's not like he's somebody who I'm trying to build my lineups around because I think the price is about appropriate now.
So what centers are you getting to the most on this slate?
All right. So on FanDuel, I really like getting to Bam Adebayo at 8,000. Mo Bamba, who remains priced still really cheaply at 6,500. And even though we have Mo Bamba projected to be pretty popular on FanDuel today, he's been projected to be really popular every single slate this year. And then he always ends up being less owned than what our projection is. So I'm not really too concerned about Mo Bamba. I still like him on DraftKings as well. He's such a good points per minute fantasy producer and projected for 32% ownership right now on FanDuel. I'm going to take the under on that number. I think he ultimately ends up being less than that. So those are two guys that I like. We talked about Miles Turner before. He's somebody who I'm going to be way over the field on. Biggest boost on the entire Pacers team last year when we saw Malcolm Brogdon off the court. So at least in terms of lower ownership, Miles Turner would be the guy who I point to the most as a GPP option to like.
Oh, God. You're talking me into playing Miles Turner. I don't want to.
You don't
I get
have to do it.
I know he's 5,400 on DK. That makes it really, really appealing to get to. I mean, what am I going to do? Play Reggie or a bunch of Nurkic? I mean, that's kind of a guy that I had plugged in quite a bit before. I think I've been over the field on Nurkic pretty much every single slate. I expect those minutes to get up for him a little bit. It's somebody that they didn't have a lot of competitive games here. They even won the last one by 20. They finally were on the better side of that, but they won by 20. They lost by 29. They won by 29. I mean, it's kind of been all over the map the last three. And so I think he's kind of a nice at 7K on DraftKings. Coming in around 10%, I just think that that's a little bit too low for him as well. And I know everybody take a drink. If you guys want to drink, take a drink every time I bring up late swap, because we are looking at a late swap ability, having more Nurkic in your lineup. So I'm giving him a boost. I think that it makes sense to get to more of him. Keeps either a center spot, either keeps in a utility spot. Those are the only two spots he can fit in on DraftKings. So getting to more Nurk makes some sense on this slate for me too. And then you can kind of change appropriately.
Yeah, no, I think that here's the thing too is, so we have this 30-minute show. We're doing 5 minutes, the slate locks on FanDuel and DraftKings. Eric and I are going to be sticking around for 30 minutes. To be honest, I have no clue what my lineups are going to look like by the time the slate closes, because we still have these guys who are listed as questionable in Nikola Jokic and LeBron James in the late slate of games, which is obviously going to be really important. We don't know what the Dallas Mavericks starting lineup is. So once again, to Eric's point, and hopefully in case anybody's playing the drinking game, late swap. There's a lot of situations still. Norman Powell is questionable. Josh Hart is questionable. Terry Rozier is still questionable. We haven't gotten an update on him. There's going to be some guys we're going to want to pivot to, and hopefully it's news that'll come out in the next 30 minutes when Eric and I are sticking around.
Yeah, hopefully at 4:20 out here. Everybody take a drink again. But yeah, no, 7:20 out there on the East Coast. Looking forward to that very much. What was the head sheet for that, Tyler? It was funny. It's funny to me. I don't know. But either way, we've got It's 4 minutes here before lock. I'm going to jump over to the premium Discord. I'm going to take a look, see if there are any questions that we can touch on here as we round out the slate. You guys get the priority. That's why you want to kind of be over there. Doesn't look like we have anything here yet. I'll give them a second to kind of flood in. But is there anything else that you're noticing in your lineups as we're waiting for questions to jump in from premium Discord that you are noticing? Again, there's just the one game that's locking. We'll have plenty of time to adjust.
I guess one guy we didn't mention over on FanDuel, De'Aaron Fox, is only 8,000. That is a really cheap price point for De'Aaron Fox, and his shooting efficiency has been really poor so far this year, but the usage is still high. So 4 games for De'Aaron Fox this year, 36.5, 26.4, 29.9, 28.8% usage. But some of those games, you see him shooting 9 of 22 from the field, 5 of 19, 7 of 20. As long as he's taking the shots, the production's going to come for De'Aaron Fox. He's still one of the better young point guards in the league. So I kind of missed talking about him earlier, but as I'm updating my lineups for FanDuel, somebody who I noticed I'm getting to quite a bit.
All righty. Taking a look here at the premium Discord. Doesn't look like there's anything coming in there. Let me take a look at YouTube here quick, see if there's anything else coming in. Everybody's just talking about Jordan Klein's kitchen. That's great. Really enjoying that. Goran Dragic, they're saying Goran 55 times. Why does everybody spam the chat with the same name in like 5 different tweets? Why do they do that?
Listen, I couldn't tell you why anybody does anything on the internet. You know, there's a lot of things I don't understand on the internet. Most of them we're not allowed to talk about here.
All right, hang on one second. So we just got the Hornets starting lineup: Ball, Oubre, Hayward, Bridges, Plumlee. That makes me assume that Terry Rozier's out. What do you think?
No, I thought even if Rozier played, he was going to come off the bench and play limited minutes.
Oh, okay. You thought it was going to be Oubre either way?
Yes. I think if Rozier plays, we're looking at like 20 to 24 minutes on just restricted off the bench. And I think there's potential for the rest of the season that Terry Rozier becomes a 6-man for him, just so they could stagger some of his minutes with LaMelo Ball. But yeah, that to me doesn't necessarily mean that Rozier is out. It doesn't mean he's in either, but it's still something I need official word on Rozier.
Terry Rozier ruled out Friday.
Okay, there we go. Now I assume he's out. I don't think that guy's going to play.
PJ Washington available to play.
That's wonky.
I don't like that. That didn't feel nice.
No, in that game. So that we still have some time to talk about that. We could right. Open up the next 30-minute segment by talking about the Charlotte Hornets situation. Now that we know that Terry Rozier is going to be out and PJ Washington in, but obviously also PJ Washington not in that starting lineup.
Oh boy, that's fun. Yeah, thanks NBA. Yeah, welcome back everybody. I'm having fun. Hope you're having fun. All right. Well, I think that kind of does it for us on the front end of this. What are we at? 3:59 p.m. Everybody get your lineups in. I mean, if you want to have exposure to an awful game there in the early window, go ahead and enjoy. I have a little bit of Terry Rozier. I have a lot of Cole Anthony, but that's really the only 2 plays that I have any kind of remote interest in whatsoever. So let's see if there's any final questions. Any love for Kevin Love? That's from our friend and gentleman, Butthole Jenkins.
No. And the issue with Kevin Love, I actually still think Kevin Love can contribute to an NBA team, but the minutes just haven't quite been there. And I think the reason for that is the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're really trying to make sure that Kevin Love stays healthy as a potential trade chip. I think they wanted to trade him last year, but ultimately what ended up happening was there was that situation where they couldn't agree on a buyout, but then he was hurt, so there was no way to move him. His minutes so far this year, 18, 23, 23, 21, 23 minutes. I just find it very unlikely we're going to see him take a step forward in playing time to make him DFS viable.
I would agree. Oh, man. Well, that kind of does it there. We're at lock here. So it is time for the half hour with Yahoo. Again, Greg and I are looking forward to playing over there tonight. And I think you should be too, because we have so many options to us available. We have 6 games. We still have the same 6 games that we would have in the afternoon slate, no matter what. But now we have the opportunity to be able to talk through the entire slate. We have the opportunity to wait on news for another 30 minutes, talk to you guys about late swap, which is such an integral part of being successful at NBA DFS. Everybody take a shot again. And we get to just have some fun here with our sponsor, Yahoo. Same things apply where we have this 1 month of free Awesemo Plus Platinum. When you sign up over there, if you're a new user, simply put $10 or more and you're all set to go. You get that free month. You just simply are going to get hit up with a ticket to them. You're going to send it over to support@awesemo.com. And you're going to be able to have that free month. It doesn't get any easier or better than that. But Greg, let's take a look at this Yahoo slate. I'm opening everything up here. Is there anybody right on the top end here at guard? We'll go position by position, just like we did on the earlier show, at guard that really is sticking out to you on the top end.
Well, first, I think we should talk about the Hornets situation, right? We didn't really get to hit on that much.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I'm updating the Hornets right now. And the thing that really throws the monkey wrench in this is I was not expecting PJ Washington to play today. So that's the one thing that really throws me off the most here. Kelly Oubre has been starting in place of Terry Rozier. So I think that he's somebody that sensible is a very highly volatile play. So 4 games for Kelly Oubre this year, 33, 23, 33, and then 6 fantasy points for him last time out. He was just 1 of 7 from the field, was not able to make anything, but still at a reasonable price point. I think there is upside there. But overall, the guy who I'm going to like the most from the Hornets, somebody who I mentioned before, and now just kind of reconfirms what I liked about him before, that's Gordon Hayward. I think that Gordon Hayward is going to have the ball in his hands more playmaking responsibility, and the minutes are going to stay high for him. Talked before about how many minutes Gordon Hayward has been playing. So Gordon Hayward is going to be my favorite Hornet to get to today. I would like to get to a lot of LaMelo Ball, but for whatever reason, the minutes have just not been there consistently enough.
How many minutes do you think PJ Washington gets tonight? For me,
18.
it really comes down to that, because I think PJ Washington, 19 is what you said?
I said 18.
18. I mean, a 19.4% usage over the last calendar year. I'm looking at also fantasy rate 0.95 DraftKings points per minute. So you can actually get some things done, obviously on the offensive end, obviously rebounding as well. I don't know. I'm not enamored with getting to him. I'm not going to play PJ Washington, but I'm not enamored to getting to Gordon Hayward. That's such a wonky thing to kind of get, this PJ Washington situation. Terry Rozier, obviously he has a lot more usage, 1.04 DraftKings points per minute as well. But he would be probably playing the same allotment of minutes. I think it's still a net negative having PJ Washington in there for Gordon Hayward. I think on DK at 6,900, I'm probably going to be hitting refrain now.
From PJ Washington?
Yeah, from Gordon Hayward. Sorry.
Oh, so you don't want to play Gordon Hayward?
I don't really want to as much. I mean, PJ Washington is going to affect. I don't think it necessarily affects his minutes directly. Miles Bridges plays the 4 as well. PJ Washington's going to step in and play some 4. Gordon Hayward's exclusively right at the 3. They can bring Cody Martin in here for some minutes. I'm just going through some of the minutes here and trying to really figure out what Gordon Hayward would be playing here. And, he'll be sharing the floor here a little bit with PJ Washington. It just feels like a really wonky thing trying to pay that much for him. I think maybe a better play. What's his FanDuel tag?
6,600.
Yeah, much better play on FanDuel, I think, than getting to him on DraftKings.
Yeah, I like him on both sites, but I mean, certainly more so on FanDuel where he's cheaper. That's just sensible. But no, I still like him on both sites given the kind of playing time we've seen from him. And still, all right, so let's look at Gordon Hayward. Let's do this activity. Mm-hmm. Gordon Hayward last year, what do you think his salary was to close the season?
7,800.
79. And he spent the majority of the tail end of last season at that mid 7K, even as high as low 8K range. So I'm just going to take that and say, like, hey, let's look at the historical pricing. What is a fair market value for Gordon Hayward? And it's still higher than 6,900.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. But Miles Bridges is playing a little bit of a different role here. LaMelo Ball, Ish Smith. It's still a little wonky for me. But yeah, he definitely was somebody who, before getting injured, which happens to him way too frequently, poor guy. But Gordon Hayward is somebody that can get there, but there's enough other cooks in the kitchen. I don't want to go nuts with him today. I might get like a share, but over on DK 6,900, it's just not going to be for me. Looking at him on Yahoo, kind of bringing it over there, which, by the way, somebody brought up a great point. Mike Ostro in the chat. There is a crazy, and I mean crazy, amount of Yahoo overlay that we're looking at right now. 5.7K of an 11.4K tournament, almost double. Like you're basically looking at getting your money in as good on any other tournament or across the entire industry right now, getting into that baller than you do, playing on FanDuel, playing on DraftKings. There's no reason you shouldn't be going over there right now and jamming a bunch of entries if you put in the research.
No, for sure. And that's also why I'm playing heavier on Yahoo actually today than I am on any other site, because it looks like there's going to be overlay. And I mean, there's no better value in DFS than overlay or any of the kind of deposit bonuses we give out. And people will say, oh, just shilling for the product or whatever. But no, I mean, it's overlay. It's literally free money being given out. So that is better than any kind of advice that we could give you in terms of playing DFS. Overlay is going to be more valuable than that.
All right. Well, let's pull up the Yahoo slate here. Now that we touched on that Charlotte news, let's get ourselves going back to my original question on the top end of guard here. Who's really sticking out for you to spend up for?
All right, so I am running my Yahoo lineups right now with all of the most recent news that we have on the slate in terms of, the stuff that I wasn't able to account for before we had started the show, and I was not really focusing on Yahoo until we got to this final 30-minute segment. But so you're asking me, you said about guard first or just overall everybody is a spend up option?
Guard first. I thought we'd go position by position. Again, we've got 30 minutes. We should be able to cruise. I think I'm going to have a lot of the same plays, but there are some definite price discrepancies between the sites. That's why you should be playing multiple sites. And especially with the overlay, it's incentivizing you to be able to do it over there today.
Yeah, so starting off with the guard spot, it's still James Harden at only $46. I think that is sensible. I'm holding shareholds of Russell Westbrook as just a placeholder in some of those lineups in case we ultimately see LeBron James ruled out. I think Westbrook would make sense at $46. Damian Lillard only $41. That's also a really cheap salary for him. So those are the guys that I'm paying up for the most right now.
All righty, and making our way down, there's a number of plays that just look like different values. Jalen Brunson vaulting to the top of the board here. TJ McConnell as well, $20, but Jalen Brunson is $11 on Yahoo. I am very curious. I just hit Crunch and kind of getting everything going here, and he is popping up absolutely everywhere for me. How about for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's unavoidable, right? He's only $11, and you have to see, could he fail at $11? Almost not even really, because if you just think of it a points per dollar, this is the equivalent of playing Jalen Brunson at like $3,200 on DraftKings. It's the equivalent of playing him something like $3,800 on FanDuel, and his price is significantly more expensive on both those sites today. So the most recent injury news for the Mavericks with Kristaps Porzingis being out, it has not been accounted for in Yahoo in the same way that it has on other sites. So he's a really, really strong value play there.
Somebody wanted to scream. So we got Rinpack, my dude, in the chat, Slate starter co-host. What's up, my guy? But somebody decided to put in all caps. How do you feel about Brissett on FD? How do you feel about O'Shea Brissett everywhere today?
I have a very light amount of exposure to him in tournaments because like we were talking about before with some of Miles Turner's minutes, they have been a little bit wonky this year. He's gotten in foul trouble. There's been times where Brissett has played some of the minutes that we otherwise would have expected Turner to play. And also in games that we've seen the Pacers trail, there's times they've gone to smaller lineups. And this is a game where, at least if you look at the game script, they're 8-point underdogs to the Brooklyn Nets today. They are the biggest underdogs on the slate today. So it's certainly not out of the question that we could see O'Shea Brissett on the court in the fourth quarter instead of Miles Turner. I still really like Miles Turner because of the big boost he gets without Malcolm Brogdon out there. But for similar reasons, I think that there is reason to like O'Shea Brissett, extra usage available. And then also if they get down, they could get to him to try to space the floor and shoot more. All
right. Going through the rest of the guard position, number of plays that are going to look a little bit different. I mean, there's some concentrated ownership, 38% for Brunson, 30% for McConnell. Devontae Graham kind of coming up with more than 25% rostership. I think that's pretty fascinating as well. James Harden, $46. That makes sense. Chris Duarte, really, really good piece of value there as well. $19. I think all of the Pacers we've talked about and, at length. So yeah, O'Shea Brissett, probably my least favorite of the grouping. Chris Duarte, I'd be willing to get around that number, but anybody else that's kind of jumping up to the top for you at guard?
So at guard, we talked about Jalen Brunson. Tyler Hero is somebody who makes sense to me as a lesser rostered option over on Yahoo. And exact same way that I felt about him. We were talking about him on DraftKings before. Even though Kyle Lowry is back in the picture, we've seen Tyler Hero this year play a bigger role, bigger usage rate. His salary over on Yahoo, only $21. That's reasonable. I actually slightly prefer him to Chris Duarte. A lot of it just has to do with we have Tyler Hero projected to be about half the amount of lineups that Chris Duarte is. So Tyler Hero, I think, is a pretty good pivot off of Duarte when you've got him projected to be in 16% lineups compared to 26% for Duarte.
Agreed as well. For me, I'm looking at the guard position in the late games. I literally just grouped it. You've got 3 early, you've got 3 late. I want a lot of exposure to the late guys. I'm getting to a lot of Jalen Brunson. I'm getting to well over the field on Reggie Jackson to give myself another roster spot at $20. We got Rinpack in the chat. He said, no O'Shea, wait on late news in caps as well. That's just kind of the way that this slate is going to work out for me. If the late night games don't go off, I'd just be surprised because they're better. A lot of those are better game environments as it is. You're looking at Portland Clippers. You're looking at Dallas, Denver, where we already have some value there. 222 and a half total for that Portland one. A game that should be moving quite a bit comparably. Of course, Sacramento and the Pelicans. I like that game a lot. Problem is, if we don't have this Jokic news, there's really nothing I can do about it. So I'm just giving a boost to pretty much everybody in that late window. I think you guys should as well. But anything else for you at guard?
Guard, let's see. Is there anybody here who I have a lot of in my build that we haven't mentioned yet? We haven't talked about TJ McConnell. He's only $20 over on Yahoo. That's obviously something that makes a whole lot of sense when you consider the injury situation for the Pacers that we've hit on a bunch of times at this point. TJ McConnell is overall my favorite Pacer play on Yahoo.
I agree. I think 30% is too low of a number, but again, I don't know if I can get to much more than it because I do want to have the roster spots. So, I mean, you guys are probably sick about hearing it at this point. So let's move ourselves over to the forward position. Nicholas Batum, your guy, you liked him on other sites. He's $11 on Yahoo. That is a phenomenal piece of value. No question about it. Anthony Davis, 20.8%. Aaron Gordon, I am gigantically over the field on a $15 Aaron Gordon right now. He's in 55% of my Yahoo lineups. How about you?
Yeah, I think Aaron Gordon makes a whole lot of sense. Another thing also, Bruce Brown is also close to min price over on Yahoo. So he's going to be a really popular play. But once again, I find him hard to entirely get away from when he's only $11. Now, that doesn't mean that he's going to be in like 80% of my lineups because there's also somebody like Nick Batum who we have at a comparable price. I have similar ownership to Batum and Bruce Brown. I have both of them in a little over 30% of my build right now. So that still ends up with me being a little bit underweight to Bruce Brown, a little bit overweight to Batum, but I think that's the pivot to make. And it's not that Batum is some kind of contrarian play. He just has far less ownership than what Bruce Brown has right now. But I think both of them are unavoidable value plays on Yahoo.
I'm at half the field on Bruce Brown there as well. I think avoidable again. We'll find out in the next 17 minutes if anything major happens, but otherwise, yeah, I'm going to lose access to it. But at $11, there's enough pieces in that window that I think I'm okay bypassing him and just taking the rest of the value. 20% is the exact number that I'm getting to, and I'm just fine with that. Working our way down the rest of this board, obviously, he's the mega chalk, 38.4%, tons of rostership there. Jimmy Butler, 28%. We haven't really talked about him a whole heck of a lot, but with Bam active, $41 feels like an overpay on Yahoo. He's right now at 28%, as I said. I want less than that. How about you?
I'm actually a little bit overweight on Jimmy Butler.
Okay.
And so in terms of what his salary is, I mean, I don't think $41 is that problematic. And something else that, although here's one thing as a comparison point, LeBron James is only $42 and he's projected for way less ownership. So at least relative to what the field is at, I'm pretty heavy on LeBron. I have him in 15% of my lineups right now. So I don't think that is a bad pivot play to make, but still $41 Jimmy Butler. I don't have an issue with that at all. If you look at his production so far this year, 36 fantasy points, 40, 56, 56. I don't think that $41 is an issue. And then once again, you go back to Jimmy Butler's salary towards the tail end of last year. He was above $41 for the majority of the season last year on Yahoo. So I don't think that's a bad price tag.
All right, fair enough. I'm going to prefer to kind of go elsewhere on this slate. But Brandon Ingram's one guy at $36, I think for $5 less, a little bit less rostership as well. I guess the projections are 6 points away. I guess I'm giving up a little bit there, but that game environment, I really do like. I don't think the Davion Mitchell individual defense everybody keeps talking about is going to affect much Brandon Ingram, different positions, of course. But the rest of the position, Gordon Hayward's down there at $26. I'm sure you have interest there. Michael Porter Jr., $26. Doesn't look great now if you have Jokic in, but God, he looks really, really good in the event that you lose Jokic there as well. Him and Aaron Gordon, just a big part of what I'm doing it forward. How about you?
Yeah, I think for a couple of reasons. Number one, actually, I already like Michael Porter Jr. even if Jokic was to be in, just because I think we're going to see positive regression in his shooting numbers eventually, not just from a standpoint of him making more shots, but the usage is going to go up as well. We've seen Michael Porter Jr. last year was one of the breakout young stars in the league. He got a max contract just a couple of weeks ago. He didn't all of a sudden forget how to shoot and score the basketball. So there's going to be more usage going to Michael Porter Jr. So already as is, I think he's a good play, but then you get the added benefit of if there is a situation where Jokic doesn't end up playing, then it becomes just way more obvious, unavoidable that the usage would have to filter towards him. So for sure, I think that he is somebody that we're going to want to get to for both those reasons. And then something else to point out, they're still expected, the tournament's filling pretty quick over on Yahoo, but still some overlay there. So we could we could get everybody in there and fill up that tournament. Just was it 10 minutes ago? You said there was 4,000 spots only filled. Now we're at 7,000 of 11,400. So we're getting closer to filling that thing. So keep piling in those entries, guys.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Yahoo, they've been so great to work with, and obviously they offer phenomenal contests. So we don't really need to plug anything. If you want to build your bankroll, if you want to win money, play at Yahoo. If you don't, maybe go play somewhere else. So I think that's probably the best selling point that you could possibly have for anything. But anything else for you at forward as we round out the position?
Let's see. So forward over on Yahoo, who else have I not talked about? Anthony Davis, might as well throw him in, but it's going to be the same kind of situation when talking about LeBron James and Russell Westbrook. Whereas Anthony Davis is actually, this is a $48 price tag on Anthony Davis is very favorable if LeBron James isn't in. But once again, going to have to downgrade him if LeBron James ends up playing. But right now I have Anthony Davis in a little over 20% of my lineups. I think he's a really good guy to have in there in the event that we do get LeBron out. And even if LeBron plays, I think we're probably going to want to get to some exposure to LeBron and move some of those Anthony Davis shares over, because LeBron, like we said, he's only projected for to be in 3% of the field's lineups right now. And he's only $43 on Yahoo. So those are two things that look really favorable should LeBron ultimately end up being ruled in. So I like the Anthony Davis placeholder from that situation. And also with you, I really like Aaron Gordon today. So we'll also be getting to him even more should we get Jokic ruled out. But as of now, also somebody who at $15, even with Jokic, it would make a lot of sense.
All right, we're going to round it out here with the center position. And I think the center position on Yahoo is fascinating. I talked through it a little bit with Ryan yesterday, but Jonas Valanciunas, the chalk, the mega chalk, sitting up there at $34. That's too low of a number again for him, 35%. I think just because people are already there, that's probably going to be the site that I get to the least of him at. Right now I have 30%, which I have more than that over on DraftKings for sure. Mason Plumlee, not the most intriguing option, gaining a bunch of traction as well over there. Bam Adebayo, Yusuf Nurkic. I kind of prefer both of them to trying to go to $21 for Mason Plumlee. And then Zubats, $16 there, I suppose, is another guy. But center falls off a cliff very, very quickly after those first five players there. Rashawn Holmes also grouped into that. Who amongst those five popular plays are you getting to most on Yahoo?
So the five popular ones being Valanciunas, Plumlee, Adebayo, Nurkic, and Holmes. I'm getting to Valanciunas the most. And it's also just a price point thing where he's $34 on Yahoo. That's a way different salary than we were talking about him being over $8K on both FanDuel and DraftKings. So $34, I don't know, quickly in my head, the equivalent would be like $38 or $39, I think, on Yahoo if he had a comparable price point to FanDuel and DraftKings. So we're still looking at Valanciunas priced in like that high 6K, low 7K range, which at that kind of situation, especially in a matchup against the Kings where there should be a lot of points scored, I think he's being undervalued there relative to his salary. So he's still the popular one I'm getting to the most, but the one who I really like getting to right now is Jokic. Jokic at $52. There's a lot of value over on the Yahoo slate. And in terms of guys to pay up for, only 4.6% of lineups expected to include Nikola Jokic right now. Once again, is he going to play or not? We don't know. But if he's in, we certainly want more than 4.6% of him. So I think it makes a whole lot of sense to get him into lineups. And we have so many guys to pivot to. Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, depending on how the news breaks. So no real concerns. There's a flex spot over on Yahoo that's pretty easy to maneuver with. So I think that Jokic overall, for what his projected ownership is, the best center to get to.
Agreed. I've got the most of him right now, 45%. It gives me that flexibility. Same thing. I'm so over talking about it, but I don't think anybody else is there in the chat if you want to make money here today. I absolutely love getting to him. I think also you have Nurkic. You have some other centers that aren't the worst plays in the event that you have to play them at that spot specifically, but I'm getting to a lot of the center flex spots where they're both spend ups. Jonas Valanciunas at 30%, I guess, is eating up enough of my center spots in some of those lineups where just fine getting to him as well. But is there anybody else that's showing up for you at the center position aside from him? And then also, if you want to touch on Jonas Valanciunas, how much of him are you getting?
I'm still right around the field on Valanciunas, but that's a massive number because he's projected to be in 35% of lineups. Other centers, I mean, we could bring up Miles Turner again, but Miles Turner's only projected being 0.4% of lineups over on Yahoo. So that's something that I certainly think makes sense to be overweight too. His price point is more expensive. Other than that, though, not really. I have Jokic as a placeholder in a lot of lineups, and that's kind of Jokic, Nurkic, Valanciunas, Plumlee. I mean, there's nothing here for, say, like sub 5% in terms of somebody who's less than 5% owned that I really think makes more sense than, say, Jokic.
Yeah. Jokic is the best play over there, period. If you get that late news, I'm very excited about that as well. There's really nothing else to say about it. We're kind of going in circles around it, but I'm kind of getting all of my stuff in here as well. Again, this contest is not going to fill. It's already, I believe, a negative, 12% management fee is what it is. It's a 12% management fee. You're not going to find a better contest today. Anything else you just got done putting on your other sites, it's not going to beat this. So I'm getting in here. You should too. There's 8,238 out of 11,360. Tons of overlays still to be had here. It's not going to fill in the next 8 minutes. So get over there, take advantage of it. Don't forget to use promo code Awesemo. Get that free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. It's going to give you all the information you need. The NBA Boom Bust tool for all the other sites as well. You have the player projections. You have the premium Discord. You have everything you could possibly want to be successful at DFS. So take advantage of that offer here now. Is there anything you're noticing as you're hitting crunch on some of your lineups here? Also, I know that you've got some nice volume going over there. Make sure you get everything in. Do you have your lineups in already?
Yeah, I'm good to go. We could talk
You're
about whatever.
You're just such a professional. I'm the guy who gets anxiety. I have anxiety with this new setup. I have anxiety with the chat. I have anxiety with Tyler shaking his head. Dude, it's new. It's a new environment. It's also going to be the weekend very soon. And I'll be able to breathe and relax and go back to my normal happy self. But Greg, what are you kind of noticing out of lineups?
Well, for one, I think you should be concerned that at any given moment, Jordan could just walk in without wearing any clothes and be like, "Oh, Eric, I thought the show was over." And like, no, wait 5 minutes. So
he's watching Call of Duty streams on Twitch right now. He's living his best life.
What does he think he is? What does he think he's doing? Working? That's
he's a 27-year-old. I mean, that's what 27-year-olds do. I think. I don't know.
We are out of touch. So let's see. Final. By the way, did we hit on that we officially got the Pacers starting lineup? Is TJ McConnell starting in place of Malcolm Brogdon? That was obvious to be expected, but now we know that officially.
Yeah.
Also,
yep.
Josh Hart is going to be playing for the Pelicans today. Josh Hart, who has missed games with quad injury, was listed as questionable. Now he's going to be in. I was actually assuming he wasn't going to play today, so I think the impact of him being at Herb Jones, I don't give a shit about Herb Jones.
Exactly.
He's not somebody
That's
I was
who I
rostering
think
at all.
the minutes affect the most.
I still think we have to take away some minutes from Devontae Graham, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, maybe a little bit less usage going to Brandon Ingram. He still negatively impacts some of those guys a little bit.
He's a great rebounding guard, small forward, should you say. I mean, he was a guard with the Lakers and in a positionless NBA. You're looking at him basically being somebody who's going to take some rebounds off the top here and there. But J-Val, he's playing enough minutes. I don't really care. Brandon Ingram's the focal point of this team. If you get some shares, I still don't care. And Herbert Jones, that's the guy it's going to directly affect, who's going to be playing a little bit less minutes. I don't think it affects it as much as what anybody else would basically be affecting. If it were another position there, Josh Hart, he's fine. I mean, 24 minutes? Is that kind of what you're going to give him?
So Josh Hart to open the season. I mean, yeah, I think 24 is probably reasonable. I'll go back and look at what he's done so far this year. All right, well, that's not going to tell us anything. So it was the first game of the season. He played 10 minutes before he left with injury. Last year actually played 29 minutes per game, but we'll assume maybe he's a little bit restricted because he hasn't played much this year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think 24 to 26 is a reasonable expectation. I'm not going to roster Josh Hart, but once again, I still think he takes away from guys like Devontae Graham and Nickeil Alexander-Walker a little bit, but where I'm going to have a couple less lineups with those guys in.
Last guy to bring up, because we haven't talked about him whatsoever, and I'm just not going to play him, Justin Holiday. He's starting to pop in projections as I'm doing some late swap on other sites as well as Yahoo. How much of him are you getting to on this slate?
What was
Justin Holiday?
Oh, Justin Holiday.
I have zero desire to play a Holiday today, coming off of yesterday.
All right.
Holiday.
No.
Celebrate.
Yeah, I'm not playing Justin Holiday today. I have him. I have a few shares of him on Yahoo because he's only min price, which is a different situation than him on FanDuel or DraftKings. So $10 on Yahoo is enough. He's in 6 of my lineups. So I don't think he's an outright fade on Yahoo. I don't have him on FanDuel or DraftKings though.
Okay. Just wanted to ask because it felt like something to at least address as everybody's getting late swap in, and you should be getting late swap in on every single site. I'm just kind of updating all of my stuff here now, plugging it in. We just got done covering a lot of Yahoo. Again, thank you so much to them for the sponsorship. It's fun to do these last half hours, hang out with my buddy Greg, kick it for a little bit here as we get going for the weekend. Hopefully make you guys some money over on Yahoo. That tournament's starting to fill up a little bit closer. Let's see. Let's get an update on that. We have 9,000 entries. So just 9,000 entries on the number as I'm looking at it out of the 11,360. Still looking at overlay, 3 minutes to go. Get a couple lineups in there. Get a couple in the $10. It's already one of the lowest management fees you're going to find for any price point at $10 across the industry. So you want to be playing in it. Hop over there right now as we're finishing out. Somebody said that I remind them of Chandler Bing on Friends. If I had $1 for every time somebody thought that I was like Matthew Perry, I would have like $42.
Damn, you'd be rolling in it. Damn. Who usually tells you that you look like him?
No, they say that I act like him. It's not even like a look thing. Like we both have blue eyes, so I suppose that's part of it. But it's more of my mannerisms.
I can't see what you did because it's not anything. Any kind of physical humor is not going to work. Where I'm going to have to look. I'm going to screw up my entire audio settings. Just whatever, do it.
Oh my God.
We're going to mess it up.
What in the world? I don't even know. It's a little Jim Carrey-ish too, but I've never watched Friends. I have no point of reference, but I'm going to say, okay. You've never seen an episode of Friends?
No, I don't. I don't really like sitcoms that much. I mean, there's some like Curb Enthusiasm. I like Seinfeld, but I just find a lot of it to be the same jokes over and over again. Where if there wasn't a studio audience laughing, I wouldn't know when the jokes were supposed to be.
So Stephen Leibowitz, make it stop. No, Stephen, I will do what I want. You'll still be my friend anyway. Eric looks more like a young Robin Williams. Butthole Jenkins, Robin Williams. I'll take it. A sport invented like golf. That's one of the best bits of all time. Oh, you mean like croquet? Screw croquet. It's one of the best. Oh, Tyler's doing it down there. He wants to get hot mics so bad. But you can't, Tyler. You can't do it. By the way,
Tyler's almost certainly on my page for this. I can't imagine that Tyler watches Friends. Like Tyler's 23 years old. Like Friends was way before his time.
So good. Guys, come on. Friends. How I Met Your Mother, though, my favorite sitcom of all time. I love How I Met Your Mother so much. Ted Mosby. That was my nickname in college. Just
that show stinks too. I like that when I was like. Yeah, I liked that show when I was 11, and then I became an adult.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Greg, any final words for the people as we round out the Yahoo half-hour show?
No, not really, but I think people should be reminded that if you've not signed up for Yahoo, sign up for it in the link in the description box below. And if you sign up, make your first deposit, enter a contest on Yahoo, you get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. We have all the tools, not just for Yahoo. Obviously, not just for FanDuel and DraftKings. Everyone knows we have it, but we have them for Yahoo as well. So all the projections we have over on Yahoo, that could help you win some money there. And as the added bonus, you still get all the tools we have for FanDuel and DraftKings. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. We're at lock. Hope you guys all got into that Yahoo tournament with us. We're going to be sweating the entire time. Hopefully see some screenshots as we kind of round this all out. But Greg, any final words for the people? No, those were my final words. You can't ask me if I have final words more than once. How many final words could I have? I don't know. The last ones weren't final. This is like, I don't know, Salem witch trial. And you get multiple people that you can address to kind of round it all out. I say that simply because I know some friends that are going to Salem for Halloween. And that sounds awesome. That would be a pretty baller way to spend Halloween. Hope they have a blast. But Greg, what are you doing for Halloween? Is this the last word or something else? This is the last words. This is the last words of the last words of the last words. Probably gambling on football and watching it. I did get a bunch of candy to give out to kids as trick-or-treaters, though. Oh, my God. Again, thank you so much to Yahoo. He's Greg Ehrenberg. He's the man. Thank you so much to Tyler Zander behind the virtual glass. I'm Eric Lindquist /Ted Mosby /Chandler Bing. We'll catch you later.